All right, good evening everyone. Welcome to tonight's council meeting. Council would like to first of all acknowledge the Wadawurrung people as the traditional owners of the land, waterways and the incredible skies we've been on tonight. We pay respects to the elders past and present, and we acknowledge all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are part of the greater Geelong community today. Now, this meeting is being broadcast on the internet, and a recording of this meeting will be published on Council's website. Good evening everyone, my name is Trent Sullivan, and as the Mayor of City Greater Geelong I will be chairing tonight's May Council meeting. Thank you to everyone who's with us here in City Hall in audience, and everyone who's tuning in online via the live stream. It's good to be joined by residents both in person and virtually, so we're looking forward to our Q&A time. Now, it has been a very busy time of year for our region, with many events and festivals either taking place or set to take place in the coming days or weeks. And one of those is National Reconciliation Week, current away, and Geelong's very own Reconciliation in the Park event at Johnston Park, which is coming up this weekend. This day is to grow local understanding about our First Nations history and culture, and to engage with the broader community in local reconciliation activities. One man we all know who did this very well as anyone in recent years was Jawa Stanley, who we sadly lost earlier this month. It was with heavy hearts that the Greater Geelong community mourned the passing of Jawa, who was a beloved Krene Wachabiruk man. Jawa Stanley's presence and contributions to our region have left an indelible mark. His talents as an artist and musician enriched our cultural understanding and brought joy to countless individuals. His commitment to sharing his culture and spirit resonated deeply with all who had the privilege of witnessing his performances and work. We all mourn the loss of Jawa Stanley, and let us remember the legacy he leaves behind, a legacy of generosity and community spirit. My thoughts and all of our deepest condolences and those of the entire council group are with Nikki, Jawa's family, and all who knew and loved Jawa Stanley during this difficult time. And we do have a number of questions from the community, so we'll get through the start of the meeting so we can get to those immediately. In terms of apologies and leaves of absence, we have a motion here that, well, we have no apologies first and foremost, do we? That's all sorted. As we wait for people to come in online, I believe, actually. I might actually just hold tight until we get a few of our online councillors coming in. We're all good, just checking Councillors Maloney and Councillor Kedwell. Can you hear us online? Just need to see Councillor Cadwell. But we'll get going and I'm sure Councillor will join us. There we go, perfect. All right, so there's no apologies. We have one application for a leave of absence. That is that a leave of absence be granted to Councillor Aiken from the 27th of June 2024 to the 9th of July 2024, inclusive. Can I have a mover and seconder for that one, please? Moved Councillor Mason, seconded Councillor Wilkinson. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? That one's carried. Something else to be noted there. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest in relation to tonight's agenda?
Mr Mayor, I've got a conflict of interest with item 2.9, which is the delivery of quarry materials and associated products. A number of the submitters are customers of the business of which I'm a managing director.
Councillor Contel, that is noted. If any other conflicts of interest arise throughout the meeting, please make them known as they do so. Can I please have a mover and a seconder to confirm the minutes of the council meeting held on the 23rd of April 2024? Councillor Hathaway moved, Councillor Harwood seconded. All those in favour? Thank you. Item is carried. Right, the next agenda item is public question and submission time. It is specifically available for questions and submissions rather than as a forum for discussion. In accordance with our policy, 45 minutes is set aside for question time, providing for each person to address the council for 3 minutes per question or submission, with no more than 2 questions asked or submissions made per person. A maximum time limit of 3 minutes applies to each question and/or submission made. Questions and submissions provided in writing prior to the council meeting will be considered first as per usual. After this, if time permits, I may open up for questions from the gallery. However, if questions or submissions are in relation to an agenda item, councillors won't be able to provide you with an answer, but you're able to hear us debate the item very shortly. For those who have pre-submitted questions but not present tonight, responses to your questions have been published on Council's website and will also be emailed to you directly. It's also important to note that each councillor has read and considered the questions that are sent in. Now, for tonight's meeting, we've received 28 pre-submitted questions from community members. I'm now going to go through the name and topics of each one of them for listing on the public record. Kate Young, in regards to violence against women. Tim Gooden, illegal signage. Brendan Chavas, gambling harm minimisation policy. Dash Anek Nering, local laws review. Helen Bryan, North Bellerine Aquatic Centre. Daryl and Karen Richards, road safety. Tegan Mitchell, Batten Road, Armstrong Creek. Chrissy Freestone, biodiversity strategy. Barry White, Yu Yang's precinct master plan. Angela and Adam Gleeson, North Bellerine Aquatic Centre. Debbie Kenelos, Packington Street North UDF. Michelle Osborne, Geelong BMX Club. Sue Bull, International Conflict. Charles Street, Lara Waste Incinerator. James Taylor, Park Street, Port Arlington. Kim Fear, International Conflict. Dominic Williams, International Conflict. Hannah Curvas, International Conflict. Gina Bell, North Bellarmine Aquatic Centre. Gary Ornick, Packington North UDF. Jean Nell, Tree Management. Gunter Saar, Packington North UDF. Patricia Gant, who has a proxy, I believe. Geelong CBD Roads. Elizabeth Edwards, North Bellarine Aquatic Centre. Joey Nikita, Speed Limits and LGBTIQA+ Action Plan. Angela Mangan for Packington North UDF. And Jane Mooney, submission to COG Council meeting regarding panel process on Paco North UDF. Can we have a show of hands of everyone in the gallery whose name I have just read out? Excellent, strong turnout. All right, now I'm going to go through that and read or call people up in the exact same order that I just read out. When your name is called, please come and sit at the chair in the front there. Please don't be nervous, just sit down, say your name, and your time will start when you do. First one coming up is Kate Young. Is Kate here this evening? Not here. I'll move on to Tim Gooden.
Hey.
Hi, Tim.
Good evening, councillors. Our local laws team has an outstanding reputation for implementing COG bylaws and ensuring people know what they are, particularly, in particular, putting up and erecting illegal advertising signs. Indeed, I have been subject to these orders when I was asked to remove garage sale signs and having election material removed from my bicycle by COG officers. Given the efficiency of the local laws officers, can you explain why, not 800 metres from their office, a ute has been parked on Western Beach Road with a sign advertising the Geelong Boathouse Fish and Chips for the last 10 years at least? There are 8 car spaces not affected by parking restrictions. It seems incredible that such a prominent and high-profile sign could be displayed on an unroadworthy vehicle for so long, contrary to local laws, without COG officers noticing. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. And thank you for your question as well. So the city has worked with the owner of the vehicle and we're proud to say has achieved voluntary compliance and the vehicle has been removed from the area.
The question is why the previous 10 years?
Yeah, Tim, I can't speak for that time. I can speak as they brought it to attention and the issue has been resolved. Thank you. Brendan Chavez? Hey, Brendan.
Yeah, Mayor. Evening, Mayor, Councillors. My name is Brendan Chavas. I'm the General Manager for the Lara Sporting Club. I represent us today. We are a not-for-profit community club, as I'm sure most of you are aware. During 2021 and 2022, the Lara Sporting Club actively took part in the consultation of the city's gambling harm minimisation policy. The Lara Sporting Club is an active and strong supporter and provider of safe and social gambling. We ensure our staff actively engage with all members and patrons on safe and responsible gambling and are energetic proponents of state-approved programs, policies and procedures. Recently, the Lara Sporting Club volunteered and was successful in being part of one of the Victorian Responsible Gambling Foundation harm minimisation studies. Naturally, we adhere to the restrictions and requirements set out by this Council's gambling harm minimisation policy, regardless of our experience and professional opinion on many of its tenets. Some of those tenets include, but are not limited to, the Sporting Club is being placed at the bottom of the priority list when applying for council grants and funding because we have EGMs, even though we are a not-for-profit community-based club. Being required to provide at least 8.3% of gaming net revenue towards the community, yet for 2022 and 23 financial year, we contributed over 20% to the community. We must seek permission from Council to apply for new gambling machines. Reading between the lines, it is clear we will not be permitted to make that application. This restricts our community club from remaining competitive with private hotels and pubs, which are not required to reinvest in the community. If Council wish to revoke our licence to the EGMs, we cannot oppose this action or risk losing our lease. However, there are some important clauses in the COG's gambling harm minimisation policy that we are trying to seek clarity and support on. These include point 5. Council will support local community-based organisations that generate some of their income from gambling activities to reduce their reliance on said income. And under the title Council Leadership, point 10 states, Council will actively support any community or sporting club, group or organisation to divest themselves of EGMs or end financial dependence on gambling sponsorship or revenue. This would be achieved through an agreed transition business plan. The Lara Sporting Club has been trying to seek communications and support for both of these points since October last year, over 7 months ago, and have received zero help and very limited communication. We have been routinely advised that the city is quote-unquote looking into it, or receive replies along the lines of, "I'm not with the city anymore, they will continue to engage with you." This last response was sent on the 13th of March. We still do not have any information from the City of Greater Geelong providing support to us to reduce our reliance on EGMs. It is remarkably disappointing the City is happy to enforce the stick, however will not provide the carrot when it comes to logical and genuine help with gaming harm minimisation. My question or request was that the City's officers, the Council direct officers to speak with us. Since then I have had communications with City staff.
Thank you very much for your question, and Brendan, thank you for wrapping up the time limit. For response, I'll go to our Director of City Life, Anthony Basford.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks, Brendan. Good to see you again, and thank you for your question. So the City has, as you rightly said, adopted a gambling harm minimisation policy in July 2022. The policy does seek to balance the right to undertake legal revenue-generating activity with the overarching need to promote community health and wellbeing, which you've certainly outlined. It recognises that gambling harm can be experienced by individuals, their loved ones and the wider community. In regard to the City's community grants, the policy states that the City will not fund facilities designated for electronic gaming machine operations. Additionally, if the total request for funding exceeds the grant funds available, the City will prioritise applications from organisations that do not receive funding from electronic gaming machines or other forms of gambling. The policy in no way prevents the City from awarding community grants to the Lara Sporting Club for any of its community projects such as sport lighting, planning upgrades or the very popular Christmas in Lara community event. The Lara Sporting Club has received grant funding for all these activities from the City's community grants in recent years, as I'm sure you're aware. The City is close to completing Stage 2 of the Lara Recreation Reserve Master Plan, which directly benefits Alara Sporting Club's members, which is in excess of $8.4 million investment, including a new multi-sport pavilion, netball courts, lighting, and many other infrastructure improvements. Again, I'm sure you're aware of these improvements. In addition, as you rightly said, we have recently appointed a social equity and safety officer, and I know that they have reached out to you, and hopefully that will be of some assistance in terms of supporting the club to make a transition. Thanks, Brendan.
Thank you, Brendan. Submitted number 5 was Dash Nering. Is Dash here this evening? She's not here. We'll keep moving. Response will be sent to them directly. Helen Bryan. Is Helen Bryan here tonight? Daryl or Karen Richards? What are we doing? Daryl, is it? Yeah, please start, sir. Your time is yours.
My name's Daryl Richards and my wife Karen is here. We live at 159 Kilgore Street and we're distributing a map at the moment of Kilgore Street and the road layout. The map shows that 2/3 of Kilgore Street has effective road humps and wombat crossings to control the speed in that area. The result of that is that the other 1/3 on the east end has now become a rat run. And in fact, 2,600 vehicles a day are racing down that strip of the road at a speed that cannot stop safely. The expansion of the South Geelong Railway Station car park, the expansion of Caninya Park and high density living across the whole area will make the matter even worse. The City of Geelong Planning Department have said that this is not a significant enough issue to intervene. We believe that there's been no government risk assessment model done of the situation, and if it was, it would take you to a serious, if not fatal, potentially accident. And that would require immediate intervention. I believe also that the City of Geelong may not be meeting the Health and Wellbeing Act requirements that require that the public are kept safe. So we find ourselves here tonight seeking one of two answers: that the City of Geelong Council agrees to do nothing, or that the City of Geelong Council would move to put one final wombat crossing in place to fix the serious speed problem in Kilgore Street. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming to Council with your questions, Daryl, and for raising your question here about public safety in Kilgore Street. I can't give you a definite answer to those questions right now as public question submission time is not a decision-making one. That's our reports into the next. However, since your local ward councils are in the room right now, as are the wider councils, I'm sure this has come to their attention, and whilst there has been some safety measures implemented on Kilgore Street, I'm sure we'll now have the information to look into further of what you call the Rat Run Speedway and see what other measures we can implement. Thank you, Daryl. Right. Tegan, sorry?
Just on that topic, if I could.
Please, Councillor Contell.
I just wanted to assure Daryl that all of the correspondence that you sent, that you asked for councillors to have access to, has been shared with them.
Thank you, Councillor Contell. Tegan Mitchell. Is Tegan Mitchell here tonight? This will be sent directly. Chrissy Freestone. Hi, Chrissy.
Good evening, Mayor Sullivan and councillors, and thank you for taking my question this evening. I'm a member of the tree protection lobby group called Geelong, but my question is around biodiversity protection generally. The City of Greater Geelong's biodiversity strategy highlights the importance of conserving the region's biodiversity and outlines the need for adequate resourcing and long-term commitment to ensure its survival. However, a thorough examination of the 2024-25 budget document reveals a concerning lack of attention and funding allocated towards initiatives aimed at protecting the natural environment. The initiatives listed under Sustainable Growth and Environment focus primarily on the built environment, with little evidence of how they address sustainability in the natural context. Furthermore, the reduction in environmental sustainability grants raises doubts about the Council's support for the natural environment and Geelong's status as a UN Tree City of the world. The budget's lack of clear funding and priorities for critical issues like climate change, biodiversity, tree canopy and environmental protection raises doubts about whether it adequately addresses these interconnected issues crucial for Geelong's sustainability and livability. Given the apparent disconnect between the biodiversity strategy's objectives and the proposed 2024-25 budget's lack of attention to the natural environment, how does the Council intend to meet its obligations in protecting the region's biodiversity and natural assets in the coming financial year? Thank you.
Great question. I'll go to our Director of City Infrastructure, Executive Director James Sturton, for response.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Chrissy, for your question. The City is currently reviewing its biodiversity strategy. We've completed the first stage of community consultation and are now preparing the action plan, which will go to Council for endorsement sometime later this year, which will be in time for the 25-26 budget process. The development of the plan will achieve a key target identified in the City's Environment Strategy 2020 to 2030 to review and update the biodiversity strategy, which is now called the Plan for Nature, and to meet the goal of protecting, restoring and managing the region's biodiversity. In the meantime, we continue to provide programs to support nature across the city that includes managing over 1,400 hectares of nature reserves, including habitat for many rare and threatened species and vegetation communities, establishing our new 500-hectare conservation reserve, supporting the nationally listed grey-headed flying fox camp during extreme heat events through the installation of irrigation, providing incentives to landowners in the Swan Bay catchment to improve outcomes for biodiversity and blue carbon ecosystems, and delivering Green Links, which is our $350,000 project to restore Warm Ponds Creek.
Thank you, Chrissy. Barry White. How are you, Barry?
Evening, Mayor and councillors. Thank you for the opportunity again. My questions relate to the implementation of the You Yangs Precinct Master Plan and particularly developments at Serendip Sanctuary. I referred to this project at the February and March council meetings and requested at that time the opportunity for a meeting between the Minister for the Environment and Tourism, Steve Dimopoulos, council representatives and community representatives. This was to address growing community concern about where the Serendip component of the project is heading and to highlight the tourism value of the precinct and of Serendip in particular to Greater Geelong and the new soon-to-be established You Yangs ward. Tourism opportunities have been significantly undervalued by Council and indeed Parks Victoria, which has management responsibility for the sanctuary. We have no similar feature in the entire Greater Geelong region with a display of native birds and animals as previously located at Serendip Sanctuary. My first question is, has Council approached the Minister's office to request a review of the project and discuss the future potential for tourism at Serendip?
Thank you for your question, Barry. We have written to the Minister's office requesting a meeting on this topic. The Minister delegated that responsibility and offered up an advisor, should they wish to meet with us on this specific topic. That has been scheduled in for June. However, I do have a meeting with Minister Dimopoulos on Thursday on a different topic in which I will reiterate our desire to meet with him personally on this subject.
That would be great if it could be organised. Appreciate that. The second question follows the same theme. At present, Parks Victoria is pursuing an agenda at Serendip which is in direct conflict with what the community has expressed in surveys conducted during 2023. The debate centres around the earlier unilateral removal by Parks Victoria, without community consultation, of rare and endangered species which were the central attraction of Serendip's Wildlife Walk. This is what brought people to Serendip. We believe we have a community plan which could be implemented at moderate cost, involving retention of much of the existing infrastructure. However, we need council intervention to help develop and present this plan. So the second question is, at the March meeting, we were advised, or were to be advised, who the official council representative is on the You Yangs Precinct Master Plan's stakeholder reference group, and the appropriate person with whom we can collaborate in developing the above-mentioned plan. So could we have an indication of who that person is, please?
So we have requested that Parks Victoria add the City's Executive Director of Placemaking, Tina Bradley, to the stakeholder reference group. But I believe the City has arranged a meeting with yourself, Barry, and our Executive Director of Placemaking and the Executive Director of Tourism for Greater Geelong and the Bellerine next week to further discuss the matter. That's correct?
Correct.
Excellent, yes.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Mayor.
No, thank you, Barry. Much appreciated. Angela and Adam Gleeson. Angela and Adam here tonight? Debbie Cananos. Is Debbie Cananos here? So will be sent to Debbie directly. Michelle Osborne.
Mayor and councillors, thank you. If it's all right, I'll speak on behalf of Michelle, if that's acceptable.
Absolutely, sir. We'll just need your name for the public record and you'll be
Certainly, it's Brian Alexander.
Thank you, Brian.
A resident of Geelong, and I'm the coach at Geelong BMX Club. These aren't my pyjamas. We literally ran a session tonight.
Yeah, we appreciate the image. Thank you.
Thank you. Props are good.
Absolutely.
The question, please, that we've submitted is, what responsibilities does the City of Greater Geelong Council have to ensure that the Geelong BMX Club, a non-for-profit community sporting club established in the late 70s, is provided with essential facilities such as safe, accessible and inclusive toilets and change rooms for all members, both riders and non-riders. If you do consider this a priority due to its current unsafe conditions and failure to meet standards, when can we expect these issues to be resolved? Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for your question, Brian and Michelle, for authoring it, and for your passionate advocacy of BMX Geelong. So the City is aware of the need for improved facilities in Grinter Reserve as a whole. For all users, including Geelong BMX Club, the existing public toilets are serviced multiple times a week, but they are scheduled for renewal this year for improvement there. In 2021, the City did complete the Grinter Reserve Facility Development Plan, which encompasses the entire area, which includes 25 development recommendations at an estimated total cost of just north of $6 million. Any redevelopment will consider of the area of Geelong BMX Club will consider a social room, kiosk, toilets, showers at a minimum. I'm sure you're familiar with the redevelopment plan. A concept plan for the change rooms with toilets has been completed. These plans are essential to progress any future development or respond to state and federal funding opportunities, which the City is keeping a keen eye out for. The BMX Club, as you know, was successful in securing the Community Infrastructure Grant to complete planning for sporting lights on the track, and we encourage you to apply for further community infrastructure grants as well. However, as said, we do consider it a priority for the Grinter Reserve area, and we'll be keeping an eye out for any funding opportunities as well as in our own budget cycles for the upcoming years.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Brian.
You happy with that, boss? Beauty.
Mr. Boss, excellent. Roger that. Sue Bull. How are you, Sue?
Good, thanks.
Excellent.
Everyone. Okay, my question. How could a petition from 400 Geelong residents calling on this council to make a statement regarding the genocide currently underway in Gaza, where well over 35,000 people have now been massacred and are currently being killed, despite calls from all over the world for Israel to stop its onslaught, including orders from the International Criminal Court, be ruled out of the scope of the City of Greater Geelong, especially when it is considered that A, Council made statements regarding the war in Ukraine and lit up the City Hall in Ukrainian flag colours in March 2022. B, the Mayor made a statement on the 30th of November 2023 regarding escalating violence in the Middle East and called on the Australian Government to support a qualified humanitarian ceasefire. And C, councils all over Victoria, including Merribeck, Maribyrnong, Dandenong, Yarra, Darebin, Hume and Wyndham, just to name a few, which are covered by the same laws as the City of Greater Geelong, have debated, carried motions, accepted petitions in support of a ceasefire in Palestine and against the genocide, and have even flown Palestinian flags. Surely this flagrantly disregards the concerns of these local residents and flies in the face of the immense grief and trauma being experienced by the families and community members of those affected.
Any questions, Sue? As per usual. So the petition, which was received by Council, was deemed non-compliant with Council's governance rules, as you are aware, in that it requested Council to form a position on a number of matters which are not considered within Council's powers or functions. In response to point A, a decision to light up City Hall was made based on state government direction and in consultation with councillors. The decision also aligned to the federal government's initiative of lighting up iconic buildings as a sign of solidarity with the Ukrainian community. As stated in November 2023 and March Council meeting this year by myself, the Council is increasingly concerned about the escalating and abhorrent violence in the Middle East. And we have called on the Australian Government to support an ongoing humanitarian ceasefire, endorse their call for the immediate and unconditional release of our hostages, and to work quickly with the international community to facilitate the delivery of life-sustaining aid to all in need of humanitarian support. Thank you for your question. Councillor Hathaway.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you for the question. I would just like to state on the public record and confirm that approximately a week ago I received the petition from Free Palestine Geelong with over 400 signatures calling on the city to make a further public statement. And as the Mayor has stated, this petition was ruled out of order given that the subject matter was deemed to be outside of Council's powers and functions. The Mayor's also noted that Council's made a statement via the Mayor at the November Council meeting, which went on public record. And I think many of us at that time in November expected and hoped that this conflict, like others that we'd seen in the region, would be over by Christmas. Instead, it's dragged out for months. And as we've heard, there's over 35,000 people dead in Gaza. And the bombing at the Rafah crossing has continued with their last functioning hospital now destroyed. This is an ongoing conflict and it requires an ongoing response from all levels of leadership in the community. And if for whatever reason, technicality under our governance rules, we cannot accept this petition, then I would ask my fellow councillors to consider what else we can do. And I hope we can have further discussion as councillors about a further public response or other measures that can be taken. Thank you.
Any comments, Councillor Hathaway? All right, Charles Street. There we are. Hi, Charles.
Good evening, Mayor and councillors. My first question, Charles Street's my name. I'm the President of No Waste Incinerators in Lara and Greater Geelong Incorporated. We are very pleased to see recent communications from Council and the Committee for Geelong, which support the cause of a City of Greater Geelong free of waste incinerators. Specifically from Council, We welcome the letters to Planning Minister Kilkenny, dated 20 September 2023 and 26 April 2024, and the mayoral statement dated 12 December 2023. We thank Council for these expressions of rational concern for community health and environment. In addition, our analysis shows that 95% of the submissions that went to the EPA regarding this proposal were in opposition. The EPA agrees that all of those submissions were lucid. Given the strength of that opposition and the fact that there is no business case or any other form of economic justification, we think it appropriate for Council to take the next step of passing a formal resolution in which Council itself calls on the Planning Minister to reject the project by refusing a planning permit. It is now proving very expensive indeed to fight this case through the legal system. We understand that Council does not have decision-making powers in relation to the Lara Big Incinerator project, but a resolution from Council itself seeking refusal of a planning permit would send a very strong message to the Minister to stop this craziness. Would such a resolution from Council be possible, please? Soon, please.
Thank you for your first question there, Charles. We are very reliant on this issue. However, I believe we find ourselves, whilst we've sent multiple letters to the Minister on this item, reiterating the position of the community and of the Council, in terms of dealing with items that are within the functions and power of Council. As you know, as we are unable to, we're not the decision-making body on this, we're unable to refuse it. We're also unable then to put it through Council to resolution, as it would be external to our powers which we are granted. We will of course continue to speak with the local members, advocate with the Minister. I actually have a meeting with the Minister this Thursday as well, so be it. So it can be a topic of discussion on that one as well. We do note with glee though as well that the community petition that was tabled in the Legislative Council on 18th of April this year, there's some fantastic work there done by the community to make sure, to call on the government to not to impose an oversized, unsafe and unnecessary waste incinerator to the region and to reject the planning permit and development licence. In our letters, as I stated, we addressed the concerns of residents and gave our own position on it as well. I've had multiple community members come up to me often to also express the continued position against this incinerator. We'll continue to advocate through the means and channels that we have, Charles, but I'm afraid resolution through Council is outside of our powers.
My second question?
Please.
This one relates to public liability insurance. So our group, No Waste Incinerators in Lara and Greater Geelong Incorporated, seeks clarification regarding public liability insurance regarding community activities on council-owned properties. We agree that public liability insurance is necessary. Recently, we held a one-day rally in Austin Park, Lara, for which the public liability insurance cost was only $25 for $20 million worth of cover via the City of Greater Geelong's Community Liability Pack. We consider that cost, cover and ease of use to be very acceptable indeed. However, we have found that other venues on council-owned properties were not so blessed. Other venues we approached required public liability insurance before taking a booking, but could not suggest where we could obtain the necessary insurance. Our own inquiries revealed that the cost was more than 17 times as much, and from the same underwriters. This situation inhibits public activities of the kind that Council itself encourages. The problem seems to arise from the fact that operators of these venues on Council land are often tenants rather than council employees. Would it be possible for council itself to have a single public liability insurance policy which covers all its properties where public activities take place, regardless of the entity which actually operates the venue? Or is there a better solution?
Good question, Charles. $25 for $20 million worth of liability. It's not too bad, is it?
Sorry?
$25 for $20 million. It goes all right, eh?
That's fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. So we're glad that there is that freedom in exploring options around the municipality to undertake activities such as yours. And as you have mentioned, the various venues are owned by COG, but have other bodies that do manage them, and they are legal entities and have to take out their own insurance policies and whatnot for that. And these do consider the uniqueness of each venue, the activity and the duration. It all plays part in this sort of area. We can look into this matter. I can't promise that we will be able to implement a uniformed fee structure for all owned land, regardless of who manages it, but it's something that's worth looking into. So thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Charles. James Taylor. How are you, James? Oh, better.
Couple of questions. They arise out of the Park Street road construction project, but they are in fact more addressed at Council's conduct. In a question to Council on 23rd of April, I asked whether Councillors' conduct in voting on a resolution to declare Council's intention to declare a special rate and charge scheme for Park Street, Port Arlington, relying on a spreadsheet prepared by Council officers, supporting an allocation of costs under the scheme based on property value, despite members of the public present at the meeting having pointed out that the spreadsheet contained clear errors, constituted a breach by every single councillor of the Councillor Code of Conduct. Your response stated that it did not and that councillors acted appropriately, relying on the information provided by council officers, which was a stunning response given that the council officers concerned acknowledged that there were errors in the document and claimed to have met with councillors to advise them of the errors after the council meeting on 26th of March. If council believes that councillors are entitled to blindly rely on incorrect documents provided by council officers, even after the errors are pointed out when making decisions, what is the point of having a code of conduct which requires the exercise of due diligence and an obligation to make inquiries before deciding any matter? If councillors exercise and condone such lack of care, lack of due diligence and failure to make any reasonable or indeed any inquiries when voting on a matter, what confidence can ratepayers have that council acts appropriately in making any of the decisions it makes?
Thank you for your questions, James. The resolution made by Council on the 26th of March, as you're well aware, declared the intention to declare the special charge scheme to partially fund the road construction and sealing of Park Street, Port Arlington. Council has made this decision in accordance with the information provided by city officers, as you are aware, and in compliance with the Council's obligations. Councillors noted at the time that the intention to declare was not the final decision. That will be coming up, and everybody will have the opportunity to make a submission to that process and voice concerns if they do have them. It will be no surprise to you that I disagree with some of the statements you've made in there about the situation where we're at, and we're looking forward to the next meeting where we can discuss concerns raised by the community.
In the same answer, Council states that the error, and there are in fact two errors, was only in supporting documentation and did not affect the recommendation as proposed by council officers, and the measure of apportionment as provided by council officers remains the most equitable apportionment method. Correction of the two errors does lead to a different outcome in the spreadsheet analysis if the same tests are used as were used in the original spreadsheet. If the spreadsheet analysis did not affect the recommendation made as to the most appropriate apportionment method, the decision must have been made on some other basis. What was that basis and why was it not disclosed to council and to the public in the agenda? Equally, Why was an irrelevant, erroneous spreadsheet included in the agenda as a supporting document for a method of cost apportionment selected when it was not the basis of that selection? Council has stated in response to my question that I have a statutory entitlement to make submissions to a panel. Yet in the answer to my question, you state on behalf of Council that the apportionment method provided by Council officers remains the most equitable apportionment method. It seems the outcome of any submission I might make has already been decided. What confidence can ratepayers have in this Council and its processes if error-ridden documents irrelevant to its decisions are presented in the agenda to support those decisions?
Thank you for your question, second question there, James. Again, no surprise that I disagree with the statement that decisions are already pre-decided. That is something we actually are legally not allowed to do in this chamber. As you noted, for transparency, the report did disclose the various methods of apportionment that officers considered in preparing the proposed special charge scheme, which is proposed. The measure of apportionment, as recommended by council officers, was site value, which was deemed the most equitable apportionment method in this instance. And as mentioned earlier, the public submissions in relation to this intention, they closed on Monday, the 20th of May. A submission panel will be held on July the 11th, and notification will be sent out to everyone who's requested to be heard in the process. Stella. There's a Kim Fear here this evening. Why, Kim? Oh, thank you.
Last month, Council responded that it hosted a meeting to onboard new suppliers for weapons manufacturer BAE Systems, and that it participates in the Advanced Fibre Cluster, a group that engages in weapons R&D, manufacture and supply with links to Israel in the interests of promoting local jobs. However, not all jobs are equal. Jobs could be created in many other sectors which will directly benefit the local community, such as environmental justice and climate change, regenerative farming, manufacturing for the domestic market, teaching, etc. Council could choose to promote ethical jobs that nurture and sustain humanity and the environment. So why does Council consider it appropriate to create and promote local jobs that result in the mass slaughter of more than 35,000 people elsewhere, in violation of the Genocide Convention, which came into effect with the initial International Court of Justice ruling that Israel may plausibly be conducting genocide? And if Council chooses to partake in creating jobs directly linked to international war, on what grounds does Council rule discussion about such international war outside of its jurisdiction or function?
Yeah, thank you for your question, Kim. So that event, which was hosted at Wilkinayal, was organised and instigated by the Advanced Fibre Cluster, a group we all know that does amazing work in the community and promotes advanced manufacturing across the region. The city does not put any dollars towards the development, research or production of weaponry or related materials. We do, in fact, actually put funds, grants out there for businesses that are in the emerging spaces of waste, taking batteries out of landfill, promoting sustainable buildings. These are things that the city actually does put dollars towards through our grants and programs. We've never endorsed or facilitated employment opportunities linked to activities promoting war crimes, and given its lack of authority on policy matters, the Council is unable to establish a working group to address such issues. Which I believe links to your next question a little bit.
A response to the next question?
Oh no, please ask your second question.
Okay. Council values are as follows: respect and encourage each other, create a healthy and safe environment for all, embrace new ideas and better ways to work, make people the centre of our business. Since putting out a statement last year, Council has refused to engage in any discussion on the issue of Palestine, including directly, I might add, refusing to answer questions on the topic at Council meetings. This is obviously the issue of Palestine is of grave concern to a large section of the community. We do not feel that this is respectful, that it creates a healthy or safe environment, or that it makes us, the people, the centre of council business. We feel ignored, marginalised, disrespected, and unsafe because our voices have been continually silenced. In our view, council actions are in direct violation of its core values. Would council be prepared to establish a working group together with concerned citizens to hear directly from us and determine measures that could be implemented to address community concerns, with such measures to be reported at the next council meeting?
Again, thank you for your question there, Kim. So as I said, given we don't have authority in foreign policy matters and items such as this are deemed to be outside the roles and powers of council, we're unable to establish a working group to address such issues. As I've said, council remains attentive to community concerns, particularly regarding the escalating violence in the Middle East, as articulated multiple times, and I'll continue to articulate it, that we do express our growing alarm over the situation, and we have urged the Australian government to advocate for continuous humanitarian ceasefire, to support the immediate and unconditional release of all hostages, to collaborate swiftly with the global community, and to ensure prompt delivery of life-saving aid to all those in need of humanitarian assistance. Thank you. Councillor Hathaway.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Kim, for your question. Whilst I acknowledge that we might not be able to set up a formal committee or working group, as the Mayor has stated, councillors can meet with residents at any point to discuss any issue. And I guess it links back to the previous response I've made, asking other councillors to consider what else might be done in lieu of accepting a petition. So I'd be encouraging yourself and others to reach out to councillors to have discussions over the next period about what else we can be doing.
Southway. Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kim, for that question, and for Free Palestine Geelong for the ongoing advocacy. It's really heartbreaking to hear what the community is feeling, and I concur with Councillor Hathaway. I would like to make time to listen, understand, and spend time, even if it's not a formal working group. So if we could be a little bit creative in terms of our response, I'd really appreciate that.
Councillor Wilkinson. Councillor Contell.
I certainly don't want to disrespect anything that you've put forward. I just wanted to make sure that everyone understands that councillors are being approached from all areas of community, and there are many also suggesting and advising us that it's not our place to be involved in this advocacy. So you need to understand that we are getting it from both ends as well.
Councillor Contell. We won't take any jeering from the crowd, please. Thank you. Councillor Contell has made a comment, as is right. We'll continue. Is Dominic Williams here this evening? Hey, Dominic.
Good, thank you.
Excellent.
Mr Mayor, I hope you're also doing well.
Thank you.
Just like to ask, given the council's previously stated position, which you have conveniently reiterated, that it is not council's position to comment on foreign affairs, which you have brought up in relation to Palestine repeatedly, do you feel that this represents a change, given council's previous advocacy in regards to the Russia-Ukraine conflict and its stated support for the Ukrainian people facing Russian invasion, while the council has not issued a statement of support with the Palestinian people who are currently facing genocide? I have written invasion in my question, but I think I am permitted to upgrade the term to genocide, given the recent findings of the International Court of Justice at the hands of the Israeli state. And following this, considering that the Council's stated position is that it cannot comment on foreign affairs, will Council then be rescinding its previously iterated support for the Ukrainian people, given that it has come to the conclusion it cannot comment on foreign affairs, which I would say a statement of support of the Ukrainian people is a comment on foreign affairs?
Thank you for your questions there, Dominic. It's not our stated position that we cannot comment on foreign affairs. I've made statements both in terms of the Ukrainian invasion and the Middle Eastern conflict between Palestine and Israel. It is not a position within our powers to be able to put something through the chamber, to put an official position, as it is outside our rules and regulations. The decision made in relation to Ukraine to line up City Hall, as I've said before, was based on state government direction and in consultation with councillors. The decision also aligned to the federal government's initiatives, who we take direction from in matters in foreign policy, to lighting up iconic buildings as a sign of solidarity with the Ukrainian community, which I'm sure nobody would disagree with. At this point, council has not received any state government direction, nor from the federal government either, in relation to Palestine. Thank you, Dominic. Hannah Kareves. Is Hannah here this evening? Gina Bell. Hi, Gina.
Hi. Mayor and councillors, my name's Gina Bell from St Leonard's. And the topic I'm talking about is the North Bellerine Aquatic Facility. Residents of the North Bellerine finally have an aquatic facility that meets the social and accessible priorities of the City of Greater Geelong. A decision to close it for 6 months of the year does not align with the principles and policies of COG. If the North Bellerine Aquatic Centre closes for 6 months of the year, for the next 2 to 3 years until Stage 2, an indoor aquatic and recreation centre is delivered, residents of the North Bellerine will continue to have the furthest to travel and consequently poorest access to an aquatic centre and therefore a lower rate of participation as a percentage of population compared to the rest of the municipality. The NBAC provides value to our community through promoting healthy lifestyle and wellbeing, social interaction and inclusion by encouraging residents to actively participate with the potential to reduce healthcare needs and costs. My question is, will the council make a decision to close the NBAC during winter based on a financial budget and operating costs alone, or consider the principles and objectives of their own policies, including the social infrastructure and investment policy and the COG community plan, which state priorities of health and wellbeing, fair and equitable access to services and facilities, and improving wellbeing and social connection?
Questions, Gina. Question, Gina. As you've seen, I'm sure you're well aware of my position on the MBAC, but the City has put together options which will be considered for discussion by Council tonight. Following this, Council will communicate the outcome with community members. I can't give a direct answer as we will be discussing it imminently. Thank you. All right, we have gone past our allocated 45 minutes for question time, but we still have a few more there. Therefore, via the policy, we can extend by resolution of the meeting. I am going back to the policy. We have been a bit lax in the past, but I think it's important that we do get back to it there. Therefore, as we do with our going past 10 p.m. rule, councillors will be putting it to the vote to extend question time past the 45 minutes or 50 minutes as already has been. I'll ask for a vote of all councillors who are in favour of extending question time. Excellent. All those against? That is carried. Number 21 is Gary Oranyuk. Is Gary here this evening? If not, Jean Nell.
For the record, my name is Jean Nell. I'm a member of Cool Geelong. We are a community group that agitates for tree preservation and the expansion of the Greater Geelong Urban Forest. Mayor Sullivan, before I start, I noted that the responses to my question, I've submitted 2 questions and they've grouped together, but can I just clarify, I prefer to ask them separately and have them answered separately.
Indeed, John.
Thank you. And I'll be short. First of all, sensible and responsive tree management is vital for a livable future in Geelong. And I have to say, the city of Greater Geelong, and I live close to Thornhill Road, so I was especially pleased to drive around there this week. The tree planting team does commendable work, and I really appreciate the Director of Placemaking's invitation to meet to talk about, in mid-June, to talk about tree planting. I hope we'll also talk about tree preservation. And can I just say also, because I think we often come here to complain rather than say thank you, every time I engage with the governance team, they do great work, they're very helpful, they're friendly. It's always a pleasure to engage with them. Anyway, back to trees and tree planting. We cannot outplant the impact of climate change. There's no equivalence between a newly planted juvenile tree and a mature tree. Mature canopy trees provide extensive shade, their developed root systems mitigate floods, and they offer shelter and habitat for birds and wildlife, which supports life-supporting, life-critical biodiversity, something which Chrissy also mentioned. In contrast, as the city has acknowledged in several council meetings and public documents, it takes at least 10 years for juvenile trees to provide significant shade. It takes as many, if not more, to develop a root system to mitigate floods, and several decades to develop habitat-providing hollows. In August 2021, the council indicated that the city does not maintain records of tree removals in specific planning zones. In addition, in September 2021, the council stated that the city's Park and Gardens Department is not responsible for managing trees on private property. Now, my question is, does the City of Greater Geelong Council record and maintain records of the removal of both native and non-native trees under planning permits on private land in Geelong?
First question there, then, Jean. I don't believe the city is required to maintain a register for removal for these trees on private land, but I'll go to my Director of City Infrastructure, James Sturton, for confirmation.
Thank you, Mayor. That's correct. The city is not required to and does not maintain a register for tree removal on private land.
Thank you. Now, on that, and so I'm not going to read out the introduction of the second question because that's very similar. But as I've stated, the tree planting team does a great job. Placemating, I really appreciate reaching out to us. But I fear we're going backward rather than forwards. And we need tree management. Our tree canopy is half on private land, half on public land. This response and the answer, which the second question will illustrate, is that we're failing to manage half of the urban forest tree canopy. Data is vital, and this is a wonderful opportunity. Our planning scheme requires, for all planning applications, to have a site description in clauses 55 and 56. So the data on what's on the land is coming in. The question is, why is the council not choosing to use that data and make the best of it? And that's what the irony is, I asked last month about tree removal. That whole question was situated in private land regulation. Again, my question tonight is in terms of private land. The response each time is purely public because we are not managing half of our urban canopy. So here's my question. Last month, the council responded to my question about tree removal on private land between December 2022 and April 2024, indicating that 41 trees were removed from private land under planning permits. However, it's unclear how this number was calculated. For instance, under only two, and there's hundreds coming through, 2 successful permit applications since December 2022, 45 trees were slated for removal. Can the council, or could the council rather, please clarify how the figure of 41 trees was calculated and whether this figure includes tree removals, both native and non-native, under successful planning permits, private planning permits, since December 2022.
Thank you for the question there, Jean. Being an operational one, I'll go back to the Executive Director of City Infrastructure, James Sturton.
Thanks, Mr Mayor, and thanks, John. The 41 trees referred to were all trees on public land. The tree removals were all approved under planning permits in accordance with the public tree management policy, which also enabled the city to gather the appropriate tree canopy contribution. The Tree Management Unit retains records of all public trees removed under a planning permit process to ensure that the tree canopy contributions are collected and the replacement trees planted in accordance with the public tree management policy. The 41 public trees, both native and exotic species, were approved for removal under planning permits between December 22 and April 24.
Can you clarify? Can you give me any information similar to that in terms of trees on private land?
John, this isn't a forum for back in debate, but you are seeking clarification, so we'll get that information
I
to
may
you.
ask a clarification.
You may ask clarification.
Yes.
You are correct there. So we'll get that information to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for your kind words for the tree team, governance, and the work that they do. Thank you. Gunter Saar. Is Gunter here? Are you Gunter?
Hello. Yes, good evening. Thanks for this opportunity, Mr Mayor and councillors. My name's Gunter Saar. I'm a resident of Manifold Heights in Geelong West. My 2 questions both relate to the Packington North UDF, a matter that the council will be deliberating on later on. Question 1, will the councillors admit that the Packington North Precinct UDF, the Community Panels Report, 18th of January 24, is the product of a questionable deliberative decision-making model designed and implemented to provide manufactured consent for a development approach to this precinct, which is premised on a Melbourne metropolitan context? And we are talking about Geelong West here. That's question 1.
Yep. We can answer it immediately if you like.
Shall I go on with question 2?
How about I give you a response to question 1 and then you can ask question 2. That's all right?
Okay.
Excellent. As you know, we will be debating this shortly, so councillors cannot give you an answer on that, but I will go to our Executive Director of Placemaking, Tanil Bradley, for a procedural answer.
The panel selection was undertaken by Capir Consulting in accordance with the Packington North Engagement Strategy, which was endorsed by Council in October 2023. The engagement and the engagement process was developed with some clear objectives in mind. These were to recruit a panel of community members reflective of the diversity of the Geelong West community, to co-design with the panel core elements of the urban design framework, for Packington North Precinct that is understood and supported. To understand community aspirations and concerns regarding the UDF and future developments of the Packington Street North Precinct to inform design of the UDF. To ensure an open, transparent engagement process that the panel, community members and stakeholders are confident is informing design of the UDF. And through this process, the objective was also to increase the panel and the community's understanding of the planning process and how the UDF will facilitate sustainable development through dialogue and deliberation. We do believe that the deliberative engagement has achieved the above objectives.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. My question just required a yes or no. Thanks.
Is there?
Question 2?
Thank you.
Right.
So, one moment, please. Councillor Contell.
Thanks, Gunther. Given that the question was to councillors, I'll answer your question. I don't admit to that.
Sorry, again?
I don't admit to that.
Right, good.
Councillor Contell. Second question, Gunther.
There's a no then. Question 2, how will councillors deal effectively with the following matters not adequately addressed in the current Packington North UDF and its implied population increase in the precinct? 1, the lack of public transport. 2, pressure for increased parking capacity. 3, the loss of amenity. And 4, my passionate one here, the increased demand for preschool and primary education currently serviced by landlocked facilities. And we keep forgetting that there are only 2 primary schools in the area. If we bring in quite a few thousand residents, pair them up, say they're couples, eventually we're going to have quite a few hundred kids, extra kids in that area, and the schools are already at bursting point. I would have thought that might have been a consideration in this UDF. But
Thank you for your question there, Gunther. So as you're aware, the UDF provides a long-term vision for the Packington North Precinct. Includes actions to advocate to state government to increase their public transport use there, as we know, it's their responsibility. The UDF also includes consideration of parking and contains objectives to achieve consolidated parking opportunities through multi-deck and underground facilities, as again, you would know. The UDF also seeks to improve the streetscape and amenity of the area, includes objectives and guidelines to appropriately manage the built form, including open space for new residents. And the state government plans to upgrade schools. The Department of Education reviews population growth yearly to ensure accessibility to local schools, that they are meeting the targets of residents that are in their precincts, that they make their assessments by. That is their responsibility, and we'll work closely to make sure they have all the information they can in funding appropriate upgrades or development of new facilities. Thank you.
all right. Not convinced yet that it's going to be dealt with effectively,
it's not a form for
but thank you.
Forwards. Enjoy. Got a question here from Patricia Grant, but I believe she has a proxy in Wendy Walker. Hey, Wendy? Excellent. How are you?
Hi, I'm Wendy, on behalf of Trish Gant. My question, I have two questions. Good evening, councillors. On the City of Greater Geelong Careers portal, currently there are over $2 million worth of positions being advertised. Several are what I consider to be more management positions, specifically being management of managers. They are not clear as it's not clear as a ratepayer. I'd like to know why, considering we have a huge executive and management staff already, do we need more managers to manage the managers? One of these positions, is a manager of strategy and performance with a base wage of $187,000. Nothing seems to be going forward in the Geelong CBD with regards to crime and maintenance, improvements, traffic, congestion, etc. Many works and projects seem to be blocked with paperwork and the council unable to make decisions, possibly due to top-heavy management. So yes, my first question is why do we need more managers?
Thank you for asking Patricia's question there, Wendy. As this is through to organisational structure, I'll go to the CEO, Ali Wasty. There you go, it's on.
Through the Mayor, thank you for your inquiry. But, the number of senior managers at the City of Greater Geelong reflects the scale and intricacy of the organisation, which oversees more than 120 distinct services. The City conducts daily cleaning of footpaths, roads and curb and channel street gutters in central Geelong. Additionally, City-owned streets undergo mechanical sweeping 5 to 6 times annually on a routine basis. Outside the regular sweeping schedule, our team promptly addresses any hazards or emergencies such as spills or rubbish collections. I believe I'm also responding to your second question, so I might stop there and give you an opportunity to ask your second question.
I'll ask the second question. My second question is why the Geelong CBD, on particular Ryrie Street, Moorabool Street and all the lanes around Little Mallet Street west area still look unkept, unmaintained, patched up and derelict in many areas with rubbish and graffiti everywhere. Geelong has a huge amount of maintenance staff and council staff to look after the city, and still we have problems. I was recently in Wagga Wagga and the main street is one of the longest in Australia. It is pristine, with no graffiti, shops all leased out and paving beautifully maintained. Why can't Geelong CBD be better maintained and looked after? And it's tired.
With that, there's many things we're trying to work on there, especially when we have shop vacancies in our main streets. With regards to city maintenance, I'll go to the Executive Director of City Infrastructure, James Turton.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Trish, for your question and appreciate you coming out, Wendy. The City conducts daily cleaning of footpaths, roads and curb and channel in central Geelong. Additionally, City-owned streets undergo mechanical sweeping 5 to 6 times annually on a routine basis. Outside of the regular sweeping schedule, our team promptly addresses any hazards or emergencies, such as spills and rubbish collections. Our inspection team operates in accordance with the Road Management Act to conduct thorough assessments, document maintenance defects and report necessary repairs that includes graffiti removal and street cleaning. It is the responsibility of private business owners to maintain the cleanliness of their business frontages and their alcoves. As this area is currently undergoing numerous business upgrades, the overall appearance is expected to be revitalised. While there are unoccupied shops that may appear neglected, members of the public can request street sweeping, cleaning services or report graffiti through the City of Greater Geelong website or by contacting the City directly at 5272 5272.
Thank you, Executive Director. I'll also probably note that under this council as well, we have more than doubled the funding budget for graffiti removal across the city. We've developed new ways of collaborating with state government counterparts and the bodies who manage other areas of land, such as VicTrack, to ensure we have access to their properties to be able to remove graffiti and whatnot, where we previously weren't able to, simply by restrictions there. So we're looking to increase our capacity in this area permanently. Nobody likes seeing graffiti, vandalism, or anything unkept or untidy, but it's something we're always going to be working towards. Fear it may be a job that's never completely done, but something we're always striving to improve in. Thank you. Is Elizabeth Edwards here tonight? Edwards? Joey Nikita. Hi, Joey.
Yeah, good day, Mayor, and good day, councillors. It's quite nice to be here. Joey Nikita, proud resident of Geelong. Look, so I've got 2 questions tonight. The first one is noting that on several occasions lately, while out enjoying the beautiful surrounds of Geelong, I've noticed quite a number of cars driving well above the speed limit down Autumn Road towards the Shannon Avenue end. Is this an area council are currently looking at for implementing further speed limiting devices, cameras, speed bumps, that sort of thing, or might this be assessed in the near future?
Yeah, thank you for the first question. I do know that Autumn Road, is one that I think we do see speeding down a little bit, where some people believe it's just a 60 when it really is a 50 kilometre, despite the signage that is there. I'll throw over to a response from the Director of City Infrastructure, James Stone again.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks for coming out, Joey. The City is pleased to share that at the location of Autumn Street, which is approaching Shannon Avenue, our recent data from February 2024 indicates that drivers are predominantly adhering to the 50 km/h speed limit. While we are not currently conducting an active investigation at this site, we do encourage you to connect with our officers for further discussion through our Contact Us channels or by contacting customer service. In the event of any Hoon-related driver behaviour, though, we recommend reporting instances of dangerous driving directly to Victoria Police or Crime Stoppers on 1800 333 000.
Yeah, so whilst it's not currently on our list, when we do hear back feedback from concerned residents, it does add weight to the issue of getting it on the list.
So my next question was noting the petition before you tonight regarding the potential for development of an LGBTIQA+ action plan. Would Council potentially look towards addressing its initiation and implementation within the proposed 24 to 25 budget?
Question. So a report has been prepared in response to the petition that was received in February and will be discussed this evening. So you'll hear us discuss it and there'll be an outcome tonight on it. And officers are recommending that Council do develop an LGBTI+ action plan, but the outcome of that will be yet to be decided in terms of timelines and whatnot.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Righty. Angela Mangan. Angela, there you are. Moody, are you proxy for Angela?
I am, sorry. Is that okay?
No, that is okay.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I'm reading this submission regarding the Packington North UDF process on behalf of Angela Mangan, who is a resident of Packington North. She's making two submissions relating to the Packington North UDF, one relating to the community panel recruitment and composition, and the second one relating to the implications of the gag order that was placed on panellists. The following information has been provided by those who participated on the community panel. Firstly, problems with the community panel. In October 2023 council meeting, when COG endorsed the co-design process, Mayor, you stated that 43 was the minimum number required for the panel to be deemed functional and provide a quorum. 61 people accepted the offer to be on the panel, but the number who actually attended the sessions progressively declined over the sessions to the low 30s being in attendance. It was at session 4 that the building heights were voted on by just 32 people out of those 61 panellists, so approximately half. Also, in terms of panellists providing input and voting on recommendations at the various sessions, at 4 of the 6 sessions, panellist attendance numbers were also in the low 30s. These attendance numbers are not representative of the community and failed to meet COG's specified benchmark of 43 people. Applicants for the panel were asked to select their relationship to the Packington North area, example resident, visitor to the area, business owner, having commercial interests, etc. There is concern that some with commercial interests may not have disclosed this and instead ticked the visitor to the area box category when applying to be in the panel, and of course meaning that they were overly represented. Many Packington North residents joined the Help Save Paco group as a means of staying informed about developments with the UDF rather than being active members. However, given Help Save Paco was restricted to 5 panel members, that meant the most interested and affected residents of the Packington North area were actively excluded from being on the panel. My second submission relates to the gag placed on the panellists. COG originally advised that the UDF would be voted on at the June 2024 meeting, next month's meeting. This was later changed and brought forward to tonight's meeting without explanation. This is problematic on a number of fronts.
Sorry, Jane, just to make sure, just by timing, you've now moved on to the second submission as part of this one? Was that?
Sorry,
Yeah,
did I
excellent.
not say that? I'm sorry.
All good.
Sorry. A gag was placed on... So my point was, COG originally advised that the UDF would be voted on at next month's meeting, and instead it was brought forward to tonight's meeting without explanation. And this is problematic on a number of fronts. A gag was placed on panellists to not discuss or divulge details of the UDF to anyone outside the panel until after the councillor briefing occurred, just recently on the 14th of the 5th. Therefore, the UDF has been unavailable to the public, has been available to the public only for just less shy of 2 weeks. And there were unexplained delays in COG alerting the public via the usual email alerts that the UDF document was available on COG's Have Your Say website. It was only after a member of the public contacted COG that these email alerts were sent out later on the 16th of the 5th. This gag also meant panellists were prevented from contacting councillors to express any concerns about the panel selection or panel process throughout the duration of the panel process, or discussing any aspect of it with others in the community until after that councillor briefing, which has only just recently occurred. Due to the gag, questions could not be asked about the UDF or any aspect of the panel co-design process at last month's council meeting. Therefore, COG has reduced the chance of public questions being asked and answered or scrutiny at earlier council meetings about this UDF. I should add that with the previous draft UDF, there was very large community backlash against COG due to perceived issues, including lack of transparency and disclosure, and trying to shut down and minimise community comment, feedback and awareness of the UDF. Some in the community will only be aware of this UDF after it's voted on at tonight's meeting, which seems unfair.
We thank Angela for her submissions, and councillors will consider the points raised when debating the item this evening.
Thanks, Trent.
I now call Dr. Jane Mooney up to the
Thanks,
front.
Trent.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm also talking to the submission about the Packington North UDF process. So I'm Jane Mooney, a resident of Packington North. I'm making 2 submissions also, one relating to the voting process that occurred regarding building heights for that UDF and some concerns about the panel sessions. The current UDF before you has much higher building heights than those that were contained in the previous 2022 draft UDF, which was put aside by council due to the very large degree of community opposition to it. We feel that the building heights are excessive and totally inappropriate to Packington North. Flawed building height voting process. 1, the way the voting was done relating to building heights was highly contentious. Various height ranges were presented to be voted on by panellists, example 3 to 4 stories or 4 to 5 stories, etc. Some people may have agreed with 3 levels, for example, but not 4 levels, or 5 levels but not 7, but there was no option to include that lower level preference. Secondly, also there was no time and space to consider the way that these heights were being presented, as a live voting process via an app proceeded with undue speed and quickly rolled from one block section of Paco to the next. This was at odds with earlier sessions, and there is a requirement under COG's own engagement policy that there is time and space to deliberate and let the information presented sit, as Capi had described it, before comments were later provided by panellists. This, however, did not occur with the voting heights, and because the live voting results were displayed in real time, these results influenced how people voted in each block of the area. There was a huge disparity between the live voting results and earlier comments made in discussions by panellists relating to those matters. In particular, panellists had showed a 90% preference for lower heights at the Waratah end and higher ends at the Church Street end. And a reminder, just 32 people out of that panel of 61 ended up voting on those building heights. Point 3, during the panel sessions, 90% of panellists agreed that there should be a gradual transition of building heights, with lower heights at the southern portion from Waratah Street and increasing to higher heights at the northern Church Street end. Fourthly, however, when the building heights were voted on, each block along the northern end of Packington Street was voted on separately, except for the portion of the Strand site that fronts Packington Street. This prevented panellists from voting to provide any height transition from the end of the Heritage Core section to the start of the Packington North section. This means that there will be no transition in building heights on the Packington Strand side of Paco site. It will go from 2 stories on the Heritage Core side of Waratah Street to 6 stories from across the other side of that street. Issues with expert presentations.
Jane, just because we were talking about with the speaking time limits concerned with this, that was the end of your first submission? Yep, excellent. So you now have another 3 minutes to do your second one.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Issues with the expert presentations. Point 5. The Melbourne suburb examples that presenters provided as supposedly comparable suburbs to Paco North were irrelevant. These included Fitzroy, Collingwood, Windsor and Prahran, these which are all very well serviced by multiple public transport options, including train, tram stations as well as buses, that connect and enable travel in various directions. Paco North, by contrast, only has 1 bus, which is both infrequent and not connected. Point 6. The access and movement presenters' solution to the parking problems in Paco North was that people park at the Woolworths car park, saying that that had lots of car park spaces on it, and he was repeatedly told that that wasn't possible because it's actually a private car park, and so that didn't represent a real solution. Beyond that, he provided no reference to Paco's specific issues. Issues raised by panel at table discussions were not fully and accurately compiled by COG/CAPI for the broad panel group votes. Point 7. COG and CAPI did not accurately capture some of the issues raised at individual table discussions by panellists, which were then put on cards for panellists in attendance to vote on their level of comfort. The issues, nuance and detail raised were often not included on the cards, and sometimes they were so vague in their wording that the meaning of those statements were totally unclear. People went ahead and voted on them anyway, not understanding what the meaning of those were. Not all issues raised were written down, or they were sometimes bundled and therefore vanished and not put up for group comment/vote. Traffic parking and public transport not addressed. Point 8. The lack of public transport issue was never addressed. There is no frequent or connected public transport in Paco North. There is only 1 bus. Point 9. A traffic assessment and management plan has not been undertaken or formulated. Point 10. It was stated as rules of engagement that panel members could request any information they required. However, one panellist requested a current traffic assessment so they would know the current situation. This request was acknowledged but was not provided. The 2010 traffic assessment study is the most current one available. Point 11, COG was asked what their traffic modelling showed if the UDF was to be fully implemented as contained in this final UDF, and they said that modelling has not been done. Point 12, it has also become evident that there has been no assessment done in advance on how side streets running off Paco will be impacted, given it is stated the future plan is to prepare a local area traffic impact management plan to understand the precinct and to minimise rat running in side streets.
You've reached your time limit, so I'll give you another 30 seconds to finish up. please.
I'll get within that. Point
Yeah,
13, to advocate for a bus review suggests this process has not started. Point 14, and my last point, it's not appropriate to be considering a UDF of this scale with such excessive building heights when there is no public transport, no traffic management plan, and there is no parking plan, and no modelling has been done of the impact the UDF would have on Paco North and the side streets. Thank you.
Thank you for submissions there, Jane. Councillors will consider the points you have raised when debating the item this evening. Have it in front of them.
Thanks
Thank
so
you
much.
kindly. Thank you for your work.
Bye.
Mr. Mayor,
Mayor Aiken?
I've just been advised that there's a Steve Russell sitting in the audience from the Lara Care Group who's said that he did submit a question in relation to the Lara Traffic Management Plan. I've actually read through the list of questions and there's not one there. Can we confirm if he was confirmed on Thursday?
I don't believe the governance team are aware of a question that being submitted. We are over time. If one has been submitted, we'll see if we can pick it up, but we might have to reach out to see if the gentleman you're referring to can reach out to officers following this meeting and get his question officially on the record for the next one. Thank you. All right, that concludes question time for this evening. Thank you again to everybody who has submitted a question or made a submission for the evening to councillors and officers. We'll now be moving in for petitions and joint letters. Councillors, are there any petitions to be tabled? Petitions to be tabled. There is one item for tabling in accordance with section 147(4) of Local Government Act 2020. A copy of the arbitrator's decision and a statement of reasons on the matter of an internal arbitration process application by councillors Hathaway, Wilkinson and Mason concerning Councillor Aiken is tabled. I now invite Deputy Mayor Councillor Aiken to make a statement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the April 24 council meeting, I gave an apology which was genuine and sincere to Councillors Mason, Wilkinson and Hathaway. Tonight I reaffirm a public apology to Councillor Mason, Wilkinson and Hathaway and agree with the Arbiter's report that I should have been more careful with my words during the planning meeting and more sensitive to the concerns expressed by Councillor Wilkinson and Councillor Hathaway, and because of that I do apologise. Yeah.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Aiken. Before we move into section 2 reports, I will call a 10-minute recess before we move into section 2 reports. We reconvene in 10 minutes. Thank you. Regional. All right, everybody, we'll get things underway again. If I ask everyone to return to their seats, please. Thank you, everyone. I'm sure Councillor Cabell will join us soon online as well. So we will be moving into, there we are, excellent, full capacity. So moving to section 2, reports for the evening. First on the agenda is item 1, Packington North Urban Design Framework. Looking for a mover in Councillor Mason and seconded Councillor Cadwell. Thank you. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mayor Sullivan. This is to adopt the Packington North Urban Design Framework following completion of the Packington North Community Panel deliberative engagement, and to request the Minister for Planning to authorise the preparation and exhibition of a planning scheme amendment. Mr Mayor, this UDF will introduce policy, rezone land and apply development controls into the Greater Geelong planning scheme for the final Packington North Urban Design Framework, which is not a framework for detailed design, but one which can be also efficiently integrated with the Gordon Avenue and the Heritage Zone frameworks. Mr Mayor, I want to thank all involved, officers, councillors, and the community most recently represented by the Packington North Community Panel, who spent over 20 hours co-designing this UDF. Mr Mayor, this has been going on through numerous consultations over many years. Agreement was achieved on 2 of the 3 precincts in 2021. Since then, there was another consultation in 2022 and another in October 23, when this very high quality, independently run, deliberative engagement, the first in the country, was undertaken. The independent engagement consultancy, Capia Consulting, were contracted to undertake this process, and they selected the community panel through an expressions of interest process. This deliberative engagement was specifically designed to have a representative membership of the whole community, well over the minimum number required to allow for any drop-off in numbers. Participation, Mr Mayor, remained well above the minimum best practices requirements, where the minimum best practices were from 15 to 20 people. And this now clearly finalises the public consultation component needed for this framework. Mr Mayor, from this engagement, further adjustments were made through a co-design process, adjustments to building heights, setbacks, parking, and ensuring sunlight is maintained for Packington Street footpaths, improved environmental design, and better access to railway stations. There will be an appropriate transition to sensitive heritage areas and the surrounding residential neighbourhood, meaning varied heights with a maximum of 10 stories identified on the part of the rail sidings yard and the intersection of Packington and Church Streets. The vision allows how local shops, offices and communal spaces would feature at lower levels fronting Packington Street, with residential living above and a green street that contributes to the Geelong's canopy targets. This sets guidelines for the future, gives improved control to the current regulations and certainty for all involved. Indeed, without any progress here, the Packington North precinct is at risk of inappropriate development due to the current zoning, commercial 2 zone, which allows bulky goods and weak controls in relation to development and heights in the planning scheme. Implementation of the UDF into the Greater Geelong planning scheme will ensure much improved built form outcome, including further opportunities for residential development. Mr Mayor, the community will have further opportunity to provide feedback through public exhibition of the planning scheme amendment following ministerial approval and through future streetscape master plan preparation for Packington Street. As the Packington Street North UDF has been completed as a separate document, the adopted Packington Street and Gordon Avenue Urban Design Framework, December 2021, requires minor updates to remove Packington Street North Precinct sections and references where relevant. Mr Mayor, I support the motion and leave it to other councillors to make their contributions.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. I'll go to Councillor Cadwell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think that Councillor Mason has summed that up quite succinctly, so I'm happy to support this motion to second it for the purposes of further debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Cadwell. And councillors who wish to comment. Go to Councillor Contel.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, needless to say that this has been a long, drawn-out process. It commenced prior to COVID, and a significant amount of the initial consultation occurred during COVID. It's a very different approach that we took this time with this initiative, where under normal circumstances with a UDF such as this, it would have come to council, we would have adopted for it to go out to community consultation, it would have gone out for some 6 weeks, there would have been an opportunity for people to provide feedback through the Have Your Say page, and then it would have come back to council with either some changes to that or as it was presented by officers, and councillors would have voted on that if they chose to, and that would have been the outcome. But such was the feedback to councillors, and I can only speak particularly for myself, and such was the I suppose, focus and love for Packington Street, that we did encourage officers to provide further opportunities to the community for consultation and input and feedback. For that, we've certainly either been praised or criticised quite strongly. I accept both of those. But the intent was always to try and provide people the opportunity to have their say on this. Even after coming back to council on a number of occasions, there was still more call that consultation was required. Again, certainly criticised for that, probably fairly so, but also praised for that. In the end, we're in a position where I accept that regardless of what decision we now make, whether it's to defer it, whether it's to reject it, or whether it's to adopt it, we're going to upset quite a number of people and also please others. The fact is, I think the community now is to the point of consultation fatigue, really, with this. The co-design panel that was put together, again, we've had strong criticism for that and also praise for that. We had the panel present to us several weeks ago. People that were on that panel, some of them I know quite well, very intelligent, very balanced people, great input from all sectors, retail, commercial property owners, residents, and they presented the findings and the outcomes of the various sessions that were had. And I acknowledge that in the last session, that the officers held with the community and the panel, that there were recommendations made to make changes. Some was to increase heights, some was to lower heights.
Councillor Contel, I'll note you're over time. If I ask you to wrap up in the next 30 seconds,
Could I have a little
please.
extension? Because this is a pretty important...
This is point one. I'll add an extra minute.
If you give me another minute,
please.
I can wrap it up.
Thank you.
And some of that feedback is noted, so there was support for that feedback, and it is noted within council, the council report. Having said that, there was no changes to the report that we've got here tonight. When the panel presented to us several weeks ago, my direct question to those members that were here or at the council facility was, what are your expectations of this council now that you've presented? And I won't say that it was in favour of everyone that was there, but by and large, the voice from the panel was, our expectation is that you adopt this UDF now and get on with it. So we come here, I guess, with an open mind, but I appreciate and I accept that we're going to disappoint and we're going to please, and whilst it means nothing, probably, if you feel that we or I personally have got this wrong, I apologise up front, but I'm voting with, I'll vote with what I think is right and with the strongest message that we received from the panel on that night that they presented to us.
Thank you, Councillor Contel. Councillor Hathaway.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I won't be supporting the recommendation before us tonight. I understand that the more long-term councillors, the officers and community members have invested over 3 years of their time and energy in relation to this UDF, and that led to the unique community panel consultation process that's finished recently. And for me, it's because of that length of time that's been invested that I don't think we should be adopting this UDF tonight. 3 years plus is a long time to rush the end process. Participants on the community panel were unable to speak publicly until after councillors were briefed of the outcome on the 15th of May. And as we've heard tonight, that the documents went out publicly on the Have Your Say website on the 16th of May and have only been out publicly for less than 2 weeks. There are discrepancies in the final UDF that has come back to council for adoption that are also not in line with other sentiments fed back via the consultative process, specifically that after leaving the heritage core, that heights would increase in a graduated way, with lower 4-storey heights at the southern end of the Packington North area, increasing up to the capped heights at the Church Street northern end. What has come back to council involves exiting the heritage core right into a 6-storey development street facing and set back into the Strand shopping area, before dropping to 4 storeys between Collins and Clonard, and then increasing again to 6 storeys from Clonard up past Isabella Street. And this is not intended as a criticism of community members who participated in the panel process, however, perhaps a criticism of the process itself that has led to this contradictory messages coming back to councillors. And it's been confirmed in the 2 submissions made to council tonight from Angela and Jane, who both participated in the panel process. In particularly worth repeating again is that at the October 2023 council meeting, the Mayor stated that 43 was the minimum number required for the panel to be deemed functional and quorate. And in the meeting where building heights were voted on via app in a rush and unscientific way, only 32 of the 61 people on the panel were present. Concerns have been raised with me directly as to the makeup of the community panel, specifically that there were 19 people on the panel who ticked the visitors to the area box category when applying to be on the panel. That is close to 1/3 of the panel comprising of people who do not live in the immediate area. Further, I've been made privy to screenshots of comments made publicly on social media by someone with commercial interest in the area, encouraging others with commercial interest to register for the panel and tick the visitor to the area box rather than disclose their commercial interests. The implications is that this community panel has not been fair or truly proportionally representative of the area and have eroded my confidence in the end result before us. Sorry, Mr Mayor, can I just have 1 minute to wrap up? Thank you. Further, there's been no modelling or traffic study done. In my view, it's poor planning for us to adopt a UDF blindly before the traffic implications have been studied and accurately modelled to reflect the impact of another up to 3,000 additional people that would live in the area with these developments. If this UDF were to be passed tonight, the only beneficiaries will be developers who own property in the area set to maximise development at the risk of negatively impacting the unique village-style feel of Paco, particularly in the heritage core area.
Point of order, Mr Mayor. That's an opinion.
That can be called. Councillor Contal, what is your point of order?
Point of order is that might be Councillor Hathaway's opinion, but it may not be fact, that it will only benefit developers.
You are correct that we cannot state who the sole beneficiaries will be. The development of this plan is in line with many of state implemented plans and things that we're doing as well. We cannot solely say who will benefit and who will not from this, but we will, that is noted, and we'll allow Councillor Hathaway to continue.
Thank you. Whilst the heritage core area is capped at 2 stories, if the north end is overdeveloped and the parking and public transport issues not sufficiently addressed, I'm concerned that this will have an impact on those who live locally and visit the area and enjoy the heritage precinct currently. For these reasons, I won't be supporting the adoption of the UDF tonight, as I believe further work needs to be done and would encourage fellow councillors to take this into consideration when they vote and ideally allow us time to finish this process well rather than rushing to the finish line. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hathaway. Any councillors wish to comment? Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This site has been the topic of discussion for many years now. In fact, probably decades since the railway crossing was taken over and built over to cross over to what became Latrobe Terrace, so to speak. So this is one of the most strategic development sites in Geelong, and it offers a huge opportunity to get it right. There's been extensive consultation and discussion, in fact multiple opportunities for community engagement. This site needs to meet the demands of the 21st century and meet the expectations of the communities that will potentially move into this new community and embrace it accordingly. The people who will invest in this development will know exactly what they're buying into and what the particular surroundings will offer. And it'll be like, I guess, the new Geelong West embracing the old Geelong West, because the old Geelong West as such will not change. Packington Street will always be Packington Street. And I think that's one of the greatest attractions down there, is that it is unique and it has its own, I guess, its own flavour of how it goes about its business. And obviously it holds the, the Paco Festa, which is a well-renowned event. I guess the issue is it does get emotional when we talk about people's livelihoods or their environments where they live being changed, and we've seen it consistently through Geelong. I've seen it consistently through the south, through the Belmont, Height and out to the Grovedale areas. Now we see the substantial growth of Armstrong Creek. We cannot continue just to continue the constant urban sprawl. We have to consider strategic infill growth in our region, and this is a great example of what we're going to do. As I say, it's a great opportunity to build a contemporary building, a contemporary environment that will mix in accordingly with the existing community of Geelong West. So again, I support the concept, I support the process, and I support the UDF design framework as it's currently presented. And I dare say we need to get it right, because this is for the long term. This is for well into this 21st century and into the next. So this is the way we see further developments. This will not be the last in the Geelong region. This is one of many that's already occurred. We see high-rise development in Mercer Street. We'll see more, and we'll continue to see more high-rise development in and around the 3 to 5 kilometre zone of the CBD. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. Any other councillors to comment? Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Some of us were originally presented with the 3 DEFs, not 3 years ago, but close to 5 to 6 years ago. And they took some time to come before the chamber in December 21, where we adopted the Gordon Avenue and the Heritage Precinct, but pretty much left Paco North alone and deferred it, pretty much basically because it was proving to be very problematic. We really couldn't get a consensus on what should be done there until this Packington North Precinct Deliberative Engagement Plan came about, and this was adopted by Council last year. And it was in fact, as Councillor Mason has indicated, it was a first for the city and in fact first in Australia to use this type of community engagement process. So there was genuine optimism that this would produce an outcome that the majority of the panel could agree on. And I note that 79% of the panel was very comfortable that the UDF produced reflects the work of the panel. If supported tonight, the community will have further opportunity to provide feedback through the public exhibition of the planning scheme amendment to implement the Packington North UDF, and through future streetscape master plans, preparation for Packington Street. And we've heard the submissions tonight or questions tonight, and I appreciate that this has to be transparent, the process, and I believe it was. But I note the outcomes may not please everyone, and the need for the panel to consider holistic community views. I just hope that was accomplished, and I believe it was. A majority of the panel indicated at the end of the engagement that there is confidence in the process, that the panel was representative of the community, and that views were equally considered. However, there was a small group had indicated concern with the process and outcomes, which we've heard from. The Packington North Precinct is at risk of inappropriate development due to current zoning, so we had to act, which is Commercial 2 zone, which allows for bulky goods and weak controls in relation to development and heights in the planning scheme. Implementation of this UDF into the Greater Geelong planning scheme will ensure an improved build form outcome, including further opportunities for residential development. I want to thank those who had enough passion for Paco to get involved with this deliberate consultation process. Capaya Consulting, who I saw them run this, and I thought the most professional outfit. And no one can convince me otherwise that we shouldn't be doing something with North Paco. It's generally in need of some real love and attention. And we've got to remember, this is a vision for 30 years. If this gets passed tonight, these aren't going to be built in 12 months. This is a vision for 30 years. So it's hard to imagine, and in your mind, imagine what North Paco could be. But I believe what we have here is a start and would really contribute to what Packington Street can deliver for the whole of Geelong. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Any councillors wish to comment? So back to Councillor Mason to close.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I thank all councillors for their considered input. I'd just like to reflect for a moment that it's been put to us that the attendance was not as high as necessary at times. According to the best practices, it's actually not a number of 45 or 44, but it's more like 20. That's the first thing. The second thing is that even if with lower numbers, the community representation proportions were still the same or even higher. So there should be no lack of confidence in terms of the distribution of inputs from various sections of the community. And those people who were highly unhappy were not only a group that wants building levels lower in the heritage area, but others that wanted them higher, as Councillor Contell mentioned before. So I think we've reached, as far as we possibly can, the sweet spot for the time. And I'd like to say also that there are detailed design issues that will happen over the next 30 years. We can't predict the traffic. There's all sorts of things that can't be predicted. They will be analysed and worked on in the future. So, Mr Mayor, this UDF, as far as I'm concerned, well and truly meets our community vision. The community vision of social equity and sustainability are embedded. And this includes promoting greater housing diversity and accommodating a range of housing typologies and densities which meets the needs of existing and future residents. It includes the delivery of affordable and social housing. It includes delivering on a people-focused precinct which ensures a safe environment for the community at all hours. It includes delivering a safe and attractive environments for cyclists and pedestrians and advocates for improved public transport, and establishing an inclusive, inviting and vibrant streetscape, reinforcing the sense of place for all genders and groups. Mr Mayor, we've run out of time and I strongly endorse the recommendation.
Thank you. We won't have any interruption from the crowd. People can have asked time for that. We will not address or recognise any interjections. Thank you for your work. Councillors, with that, I put to the vote. Councillors, all those in favour of the Packington UDF recommendation in front of us? Thank you. All those against? The item is carried.
Mr Mayor, can I call for a division on that vote, please?
Absolutely. Councillor Hathaway is calling for division on item 1 being Packington North Urban Design Framework. All councillors in favour? They are Councillor Contell, Councillor Cadwell, Councillor Maloney, Councillor Sullivan, Councillor Mason, Councillor Murray, Councillor Harwood, Councillor Nelson. All those against is Councillor Aiken, Councillor Hathaway, Councillor Wilkinson. Thank you. Item number 2, the Draft Disability Access and Inclusion Plan 2024 to 28. This is moved by Deputy Mayor Aiken and seconded by Councillor Hathaway. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Before us tonight, we're being asked to endorse the Draft Disability Access and Inclusion Plan for 2020 to 2028 for community consultation for 5 weeks. There are 54,985 people in Geelong that actually identify with a disability, and nearly half of our 30,115 unpaid carers over the age of 15 identify with a disability as well too. So in fact, we have a massive responsibility to have a access and inclusion plan which actually improves significantly the access and inclusion of people living with a disability in Geelong. There are a number of outlined steps that have been identified in the action plan. We're talking about increasing our sanctuary quiet time at our leisure facilities and our aquatic facilities. We're also talking about our ambition for changing places. Facilities have more of them throughout the community as well too. We're actually coming up with some unique ideas to try to see how people with disabilities can actually be engaged in public arts projects. The plan has been endorsed by the Council's Access and Inclusion Advisory Committee, which I have the pleasure of chairing. But the reality is we should be doing more, and we can do more. We have the headquarters of both the TAC and WorkSafe in Geelong. The TAC, of course, deals with lots of people that have acquired disabilities through road trauma. WorkSafe has a number of clients that have acquired disabilities through workplace accidents and injuries. And of course, we also have the national headquarters of the NDIA, which is the National Disability Insurance Agency, which in fact is nearly one of the largest agency expansion items of the federal government. They're all headquarters in Geelong. So our ambition in Geelong, the reality is we should be the most inclusive community in Australia with all of those organisations. And I am pleased that the report does talk about we are going to review and develop policies and procedures to improve accessible recruitment practices within the city. The reality is we don't have enough people with lived disabilities in our senior management teams and our senior levels at the City of Greater Geelong. If 1 in 5 people actually identify with a disability, we have 0 in our senior management teams that identify with a disability. So it is a challenge that we have. If we're an organisation that wants to be an employer of choice, we actually need to be an employer of choice for all people, including people that actually are living with a disability as well too. So I'm pleased that the action report draft is actually challenging the council to do those things. I won't have confidence until I actually see multiple people living with a disability sitting at this table, both in executive role and as a councillor role as well too.
Point of order.
Councillor Wilkinson, point of order.
I'm not sure it's actually clear about whether people are living with a disability or not, Deputy Mayor Aitken. It may not be necessarily visible to you, so to make a statement like that might be assuming.
That is a valid point of order. Not just all disabilities are visible. We know this. I think Deputy Mayor Aitken knows this. I think it's a point of knowing of anybody who identifies. Nobody has to be public with their identification if they wish to or not. So we will note that point of order and it will stand. And Deputy Mayor will continue, please.
Look, I do apologise if it was construed that I was actually being negative about people. What I really want to see is more people with cochlear implants and vision impairment and wheelchairs and other people who are living with disabilities in leadership roles in the city, whether it's councillors or executive team as well too. We will only do that if we actually address the barriers that are in place. We've actually got physical and infrastructure barriers at many of our worksite locations within the City of Greater Geelong, and we also have significant operational practices that actually restrict people as well too with disabilities to actually be employed and be in senior management roles in the city as well too. Until they're actively addressed and identified, we're not going to be the inclusive community that I certainly and the Access and Inclusion Committee has an aspiration to be.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Aitken. Councillor Hathaway.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and yeah, thanks to the Deputy Mayor for his comments. I guess the one thing I would add to that is our recent first-hand experience of seeing the Nash open in the north, and I guess the benefits of hindsight having our Access and Inclusion Advisory Committee walk through that facility and point out a number of things that could be improved in terms of access going forward. So it's certainly my hope that by having this plan and having a thorough access and inclusion plan that any future developments of the city infrastructure will have this lens put over it, and we can ensure that all our amenities and facilities are accessible. But otherwise, nothing further to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hathaway. Other councillors to comment? Tell.
Really, just a very short comment, just to support this report. I mean, the more focus and work that we can put and investment in this area is only going to improve the environment for all the people that either live or visit our region. And I think it's extremely important that we continue to look at areas of access and egress. I have recently engaged with a group called Achilles, which helps support those people who have vision impairment but have a deep desire to either walk or run, and Achilles provides sighted guides for that initiative. But one of the more important aspects of that is having an environment that allows for easy access and for those people. And as we start to look for locations for an initiative like that in Geelong, you soon start to see that there are challenges in that environment. And so I really support what we're trying to achieve here.
Thank you, Councillor Contell. Any other councillors? Back to Deputy Mayor Aiken.
Nothing further to add, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. With that, put to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? The item is carried. Item number 3, Northern Aquatic Community Centre process for naming following community consultation. This one is also moved by Deputy Mayor Aiken, seconded by Councillor Hathaway. Deputy Mayor.
Look, this is actually my favourite project over the last 7 years, and I'm actually really, really excited to bring forward the naming of the project as well too. And it's actually been driven by the community. Our Community Reference Liaison Committee 100% backed what's been put before the council tonight. They actually wanted Norlane to be included in the name. They are extremely proud of the community in which they live and they represent, and they said that if we've got the best facilities in Geelong that are based in Norlane, why can't they have the geographical and location name to reflect that as well too? And the second thing they said as well too is that the name needs to reflect the diversity of activities that occur out at that site. And it was a really important point. It is not just an aquatic facility, it is not Water World. There's an incredible civic space out there as well too. 2 types of civic space, an outdoor plaza and an indoor civic hall. And the community has been really strong to actually say they wanted an official name that goes across the whole precinct. And I think calling it the Norlane Arc is an attractive name, which actually suggests that if to go into there, it's going to be something different, and we can still honour multiple other names that there are aspirations that the community does have as well too. And that includes, there is an opportunity for the pool hall to be called Water World, to reflect the name of the past of the former Norlane pool. The Community Liaison Committee has also said as well too that the Civic Hall should be named after an Indigenous term, and we will now work with the traditional registered Aboriginal party to actually come up with an Indigenous term for the Civic Hall. And there are many other aspects of the site location that the Community Liaison Committee has put forward ideas to. The reality is the first mayor of the City of Greater Geelong, who's now deceased, Councillor Jerry Smith, has no recognition in any site locations throughout the City of Greater Geelong. And it has been put forward that the public plaza area that surrounds the outside of the building should be named after former mayor and the first inaugural mayor of the City of Greater Geelong. And there are other naming opportunities that have been put forward. The federal member for Quarry has requested that the Learn to Swim pool be named after Herb Jeffries, who was the long-term manager of that site location as well too. And I can assure you, Councillor Hathaway and I are also respectful that there are significant female leaders in that community as well too, and there are a number of other opportunities to look at naming components. But tonight is about the official name that we are giving to the largest investment that this City of Greater Geelong has actually ever done outside the CBD area, the Norlane Aquatic Recreation Centre, or the official name as what will be put on the outside of the building, the Norlane Arc. After tonight's resolution appears will be adopted, and I'm really proud for the Norlane community that their name is being recognised in the facility.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Aiken. Councillor Hathaway.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, look, I'll echo all those comments and ask the question, what's in a name? You wouldn't think it would be much, but this is hours of consultation with our community reference group, with officers, with councillors, shortlisting, you know, discussing connotations of words that we've got to this point. So look, maybe not everyone in the community will love it. I hope most do, and just know that it, you know, wasn't a quick resolution to get here. I do look forward to seeing it go up on the side of the building. Certainly we're getting a lot of commentary that there's a big building on the corner, but it's not really obvious what it is. So it'll be nice to see that named. And look, just want to add that, you know, there's great to have a name for this facility and acknowledge that there's been some teething issues, but for someone who's accessing this facility every week for Learn to Swim, it's like people feel a lot of pride in the north that we've had this facility, and I know that's been echoed to councillors before, but it's worth echoing again. So yeah, it's great to have that in the north.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Hathaway. Any other councillors to comment? Oh, go back to Deputy Mayor Aiken.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just to echo the words of my fellow Northern Suburbs councillor, look, we're both really pleased about this decision tonight. It looks like we'll get unanimous support from the council as well too. And we should point out, Sarah and I have now attended a couple of events in the new Civic Hall. The Hazara community of Geelong had over 600 people attend an event at that site location, and the Islamic Society of Geelong also embraced that site location as well too. And it is amazing how when you build something that is of really high standard, that the broader community can benefit from it. And those two events were just fantastic events that we had the privilege of attending, and it really activated the whole area, the car parking, the plaza, the civic area, and thankfully on one of the events they had problems with the toilets. They were able to open the toilets in the aquatic section so that the toilets were able to be used as well too. So look, well done to everybody that's been involved in it, and I think it's also important we acknowledge all the members of the Community Liaison Reference Committee and the officers that have got us to this point. This is a momentous occasion tonight to actually name the facility, and look, could not be prouder of everyone's contributions. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Aiken. I will now put that to the vote. All those in favour of the recommendation? Thank you. All those against? The item is carried. Right. Item number 4 on the agenda. North Bellerine Aquatic Centre, options for ongoing operations. There's an officer recommendation there. I'll ask that to be moved by Councillor Mason. Thank you. Seconded by Deputy Mayor Aiken. I actually have an alternative, which I'm going to put on the table here. I'll ask for a seconder in Councillor Wilkinson. Thank you. And that is that the alternate is, as up on the screen behind me, that Council endorse option 1 as opposed to option 2. And that we do maintain open for the winter, being April to October, and open for business on weekdays between 6 a.m. to 10 a.m, from Saturday 8 a.m. to midday, and that Sundays will be closed. The point 2, we request that the CEO identify funds to cover the estimated shortfall of $423,723 in the current draft budget to facilitate the MBAC opening times as outlined in Part 1. That'll come out of the operating budget. Since I have moved that and has been seconded, I will now speak to it. So the process going for this is that I speak to it, Councillor Wilkinson will speak to it, councillors will have their say, then we'll vote on whether that becomes a substantive motion. So I believe all of us across not only just the Bellerine or the northern Bellerine, but the entire municipality can be proud of what has been built out there in the Drysdale Sporting Precinct. We have a fantastic 50-metre multiple lane pool that's heated, that's available for year-round usage, and it should remain available for year-round usage. What we have really here is a question of equity to aquatic facilities across our entire municipality. We're often referred to as a municipality of pools, something that we have worked hard to actually achieve. We recognise as a community, as an organisation, as a council, the well-being, the health benefits of having facilities such as this. We hear from a wide cross-section of the community, whether you're fully abled, disabled, have different socioeconomic restrictions. We have parity of access of our pricing of facilities, and a facility like this that has full access for all members of our community has been well used, well loved, and people cannot speak highly enough of it. And it's actually interesting to note that when we're talking about, equity of access across the entire municipality, we also know we have the Basque in Ocean Grove, but Splashdown, which is a beloved centre as well, is just inside the Bellerine ward and is therefore qualifies as to service the residents of the North Bellerine. Now, Splashdown, believe it or not, is actually closer to Lara than it is to St Leonard's and Dennet Head and people of the north in Bellerine. So whilst it is a fantastic facility that has a great catchment, I don't believe it services the need that the NBAC really does do. When we're talking of cost of entry, we don't really make money off our aquatic facilities. They're a service that we provide, and there's also going to be a certain amount of subsidy in this. But looking at the dollars and cents in this, keeping the North Bellerine open doesn't cost us any more per visit than it does keeping Cardinia Park open, Cardinia Park Pool open throughout the winter months. Therefore, I believe our residents in the Bellerine and the North Bellerine should have the same access because there's no prohibitive funding structure in there as well. And we do admit that we are in this interesting stage between development. We have stage 1 out there built and the outdoor aspects of it are there. We have the progress going full steam ahead for the stage 2, which we're very fortunate enough to get funding co-committed by both parties in the last election to see stage 2 going ahead, which hopefully will have shovels in the ground before we know it. And when we have that complete facility, we will have a facility that caters to the demands of the entire community and will be absolutely, undeniably a year-round asset. But that doesn't mean that we should sacrifice what we have now in the medium term until we achieve that level there. And what I believe those are also very important. As a council, we cannot build these facilities that the community wants, that the community needs, and open them for really a few months and then close the door on people. We want people to join up to our facilities, to join memberships, take out and say, beautiful, this is the one I'm going to be using. And living close to this as well, it's renewed my interest in swimming too, which I've been very keen on over the last 5-6 months. We cannot put things in front of people and then just suddenly take it away simply because we've encountered difficulties in the past. A lot of great progress has been made with our fiscal situation. We have delivered surplus and will continue to be in surplus even with these additional funds being reallocated. As I said, this is equity of access across the entire municipality. We are the city of Greater Geelong, not just the Geelong Township itself. And I'm more than happy to move this motion that will keep the facility open year-round for everyone to enjoy. And I also encourage everybody who's not from the Bellerine or the North Bellerine to come out for a swim as well. You'll be more than welcomed to come out and try our facility. But with that, happy to throw over to Councillor Wilkinson to second.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd firstly like to thank the community of Bellerine for your ongoing advocacy for keeping this pool open, for the emails, for the petition, and for all the questions tonight, and for Gina for coming out and asking your question in person. We hear from people every day stories of social connection, of improved health outcomes, of being able to exercise with young adults and children with neurodiversity that find indoor pools actually really overwhelming. So this is a really, it's an important asset in our community, and while ideally I would like to see it open 7 days a week and all the time, this is a compromise. And a sound compromise. I acknowledge that it's actually really challenging to get your head round the cost of running a pool, and I ask with your permission, Mr Mayor, if I could ask a question of Executive Director Anthony Basford, just if he could give us some, I don't know, sort of some information and some education around the cost of the Bellerine pool.
Yeah, you may certainly ask a question for clarification.
Through you, Mayor, and thanks, Councillor Wilkinson, for the question and for the heads up as well, so I could at least give it some thought before the question was asked. I think it's important to understand that the biggest cost is electricity. It's a fully electrified facility. It does have solar panels on the roof to mitigate some of those costs, but ultimately that is one of the utilities are the biggest cost aside from, I guess, from staff in terms of running the facility. As you would imagine, there is significant heat loss during the winter months to the atmosphere, so we have to work harder to keep the pool at the temperature required for people to utilise it and to enjoy the pool. we have to staff it to certain levels based on our legislative requirements and regulations and best practice. So regardless of whether people are there or not, you still have to have the right level of staffing. So that's adds to the cost of running a facility, and that's the same for all our facilities. So NBAC isn't special in that regard. The other interesting thing with an outdoor pool, which may seem a bit odd, is that on occasions we have to have more staff there because it's important that the lifeguards are actually able to see the bottom of the pool for obvious reasons. And there can be a mist. So when you get a temperature inversion, you actually can get mist across the pool, which actually can prevent lifeguards from seeing the length of the pool or into the pool itself. So we require additional staff to cover that. Chlorine and those other chemicals that we use to ensure that the pool is kept immaculate and clean. I've heard comments say that it's amazing that you can pretty much see from one end of the pool to the other, given the type of filtration system that we have on that pool. Within the report, it talks about the use of pool blankets as well, Councillor. So in terms of the options that have been being put up, what that does is it actually maximises the time that the blanket can be on the pool, and by maximising that reduces heat loss. So that's one of the good things about the length of time that the blankets can stay on. If you have a morning and then an afternoon, you can't, by the very nature of the blankets and their bulkiness and OH&S requirements, you can't just be sort of just putting them on and off as required. Look, there's a range of other business and operational things as you can imagine, but look, and then also depreciation. So it's not like running a backyard pool. There is a whole range of costs that are associated with running a very high-tech, high-level, very modern facility. I hope that helps.
Please continue.
Thank you, Anthony. But to wrap up, it's a fantastic facility, and I encourage anyone to go and have a look at the mist in the morning as the sun rises. It's amazing. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. Invite councillors to comment. Deputy Mayor Aiken.
Thanks, Mr. Smith. Look, I'm going to support the recommendations, but if you actually listen to everything that the councillors have said in support of it, the Lara community has every right to ask why their pool actually isn't being open during winter time as well too. All the benefits that have been identified why the North Bellerine pool should be open, the Lara community has actually argued previously as well too, and in fact we have trialled extensions with that community as well too for that pool as well too. So I hope we can move towards a policy position about our pools as opposed to picking them off individually in terms of when they're open and when they're closed. And I'm happy to support the resolution, but I just temper people's enthusiasm. We've actually got other members in our community that are not getting the opportunity, and I'm sure out at Lara they'd love to see the mist come off the Lara's outdoor swimming pool as well too.
Mayor Aiken. Tell.
Again, I'll just start off by saying that this will only be very quick, but I'm very supportive of this initiative. I don't think I've heard you speak so passionately about a matter before, Mr. Mayor. You were certainly committed, and I'm sure that the voice of the previous Mayor, Asher, is in your ears about getting this one right. And I do take on board what Councillor Aitken has indicated as well. I think all of our community has the right to facilities such as this. There's no doubt balancing our budget is really, really tough, and every councillor around this chamber appreciates that, given that the process that we've just gone through, and there's still more work to be done before we adopt the draft budget, and there are a number of initiatives that we still would like to see come to fruition. But that being said, I just think it's so important that facilities such as this, swimming pools and so many others, are available to our residents and visitors to this region for as broadly and widely as possible for all the benefits that have been indicated tonight. I think we encourage officers to continue to look at innovation and any technology or offerings that are out there that will help us not only keep facilities open and available to our residents, but also a means of trying to do that in the most efficient and effective manner. So if there are initiatives out there that can help us keep the pool warmer for longer and cheaper, then that'll be also sound investments that maybe we need to be making going forward.
Thank you, Councillor Contell. The councillor to comment before put to the vote. You don't close with things like this, so I'll put immediately back to the vote. All those in favour of the proposed alternate? Thank you. All those against? That is carried, so that becomes a substantive motion. Councillor Mason, you accept what has become the substantive motion. Deputy Mayor Aiken, all good with the secondary? Thank you. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly a cost of this expensive depreciating asset remaining idle. I'm not sure that we've done a full analysis of what it costs to keep it remaining idle, but it still has to be heated to stop the algae growing. There still has to be all sorts of maintenance stuff going on there. So at the outset, we knew we had a pool that would cost more, would cost us more, but now we have it, we don't want to have a white elephant. And I think that social equity has been mentioned a number of times. And the Bellerine has been, over years, hasn't had the opportunity that others have had for this type of health and contribution to health and well-being. This is another service like libraries, like aged care, like childcare, and other services. And they cost. Interestingly, Cardinia costs more to keep open, despite its even higher patronage, costs more than the Bellerine pool. That's something to reflect about too. So I fully support the aspect of social equity and this pool staying open under limited conditions. But I do think that as a consequence, we've got some very serious thinking to do in the future on how to cost effectively run all of our swimming pools, perhaps by outsourcing or perhaps by using other community support models in some way. So there's work to be done in the future. In the meantime, we need to treat everybody with some equity, and I support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Deputy Mayor Aiken.
Nothing further to add, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors wish to comment? I'll say a few words for a throwback. Yeah, you're quite correct, Councillor Mason. We had attendance numbers assessed from summer into the shoulder season as well, where we get a significant drop-off normally in other facilities in attendance. However, I was pleased to see that there's actually not a significant drop-off in people attending the North Bellerine Aquatic Centre, despite entering a couple of cooler months. In fact, attendance levels were negligible in their levels they were operating there. And really, when you see the passion from the community, when you see a petition come across your desk that has over 2,000 signatures, I reiterate, I'm not sure I've ever seen one that large or that many signatories come across the chamber in my nigh on 7 years on council. The passion, you hear about it in person, online, you see it through the chamber, it is obvious, it's well loved. The North Bellerine have quickly taken this pool into their heart and are very protective of it. And I'm certainly supportive of the motion to keep it open all year round. I love some more hours. If we get some good numbers, hopefully we can push for further hours next year. But what we have here is a good way that people can have access to this aquatic facility year round and maintain the benefits that come with it. The councillors there we go. Thank you. If no further councillors to comment, I'll throw back to Councillor Mason to close.
Nothing further to add, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Put that to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? The item is carried. All right, councillors, we'll move on to number 5, fifth report for the evening, response to LGBTI+ action plan petition. We'll have this initially moved by Councillor Mason, seconded by Councillor Maloney. Is that with that? So that's the original recommendation. Councillor Hathaway?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move an alternative motion.
You have a seconder for your alternative motion in Councillor Wilkinson. Councillor Wilkinson. Councillor Hathaway, you may speak to, or just describe your alternate to us, and then you may speak to it at large.
Mayor, so the alternate is up on the screen, and it does incorporate the officer's initial recommendation in point 1 that we note the response to the Rainbow Local Government petition, which was tabled on the 27th of February. The alternate includes point 2, that we acknowledge the work completed to date by officers to assess the requirement for LGBTIQA+ action plan in 2024. And point 3 requests the CEO to develop a LGBTIQA+ action plan for council consideration no later than the April 2025 council meeting, with the aim to launch the plan at Ida Hobbit 2025. The City of Greater Geelong has a proud history of support for the LGBTIQA+ community. In December 2012, a notice of motion was carried unanimously that council support our GASP group, so it's a support group for LGBTI youth, councillors and employees to march under the council banner at the Pride March in 2013. At Ida Hobbit this year, a number of councillors and council officers heard from Daniel Whithouse at the city's Ida Hobbit event. And Daniel was one of the city's employees running GASP in the early years, in the 90s when it started. And he spoke about how he and another officer running the program at the time were lambasted and put on the front page of the Addy and labelled pedophiles. Despite this attack, the City of Greater Geelong stood by its staff, stood by the program and the young people accessing it. In July 2014, Council unanimously passed a motion to declare its support for marriage equality, and Geelong was the second council in Australia to do so. In the 2016-2017 budget, 3 EFT was dedicated to GASP positions, with the program delivered at schools, in the old post office and at the potato shed on the Bellerine. In 2024, currently for this term, we have one of the 2 GASP sessions running due to lack of staffing at the moment, and that session running in the City Hall boardroom, which isn't the most welcoming, but we're looking forward to the Youth Hub opening. In recent times, it took 2 years to establish the LGBTIQA+ Advisory Committee, and then 5 years to get the permanent rainbow crossing on Yarra Street. The City of Greater Geelong is lucky to have some very dedicated staff working in this area. However, it has become apparent to advisory committee members and the broader community that this area of work is not resourced to the level that it has been in the past. And we hope that with the completion of the Rainbow Ready Roadmap internal audit and a commitment to the LGBTIQA+ strategy and action plan, that resourcing in this area will increase going forward, and that we can work towards a day where homophobic views, such as what was distributed to attendees in the chamber this evening, and that we see in response to related posts on the City of Greater Geelong social media pages, are no longer as prevalent in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hathaway. Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to acknowledge the valuable contribution of the city's LGBTIQA+ Advisory Committee, and as Councillor Sarah Hathaway as their chair, the Victorian Pride Lobby for garnering the support for the petition that has started this through the Rainbow Local Government campaign back on the 27th of Feb. We know that research shows that LGBTIQA plus Victorians face higher levels of unfair treatment, discrimination, social exclusion, abuse and harassment. The figures are higher in regional and rural areas, and for people from multicultural backgrounds that also identify as LGBTIQA plus. So 4 years ago, Council took the Rainbow Pledge and committed to an LGBTIQA plus advisory group and an action plan, and we're 4 years down the track. So it's really, while I acknowledge the work that's been done, it's time for clear and achievable action through an action plan, and I strongly recommend this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. Other councillors wish to speak on the alternate? If not, we don't close out on this one, so I'll be putting that one straight to the vote. All those in favour in Councillor Hathaway's proposed alternate? Thank you. All those against? That is carried. So that becomes the substantive. Councillor Mason and Maloney, you're both happy with that? Excellent. Councillor Mason, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, councillors and Councillor Hathaway. As the inaugural chair of the LGBTQIA plus advisory committee, I understand the city has placed in setting up this committee and the work of the councillors at the time, and especially Councillor Sarah Mansfield, now Victorian MLC. There's no doubt we support the desire to ensure social equity action plans and that they are strategically aligned and integrated. I understand an assessment of the requirements for an LGBTIQA action plan will be undertaken this year, and I know the city is committed to continuing to embed the Rainbow Ready roadmap. So to ensure that we make sufficient progress, I think it's prudent that we have an action plan in place by Ida Hobbit 25. And this will reinforce the city's goodwill towards the LGBTQIA plus community. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Councillor Maloney.
Thank you, Mayor Sullivan. I just wanted to echo the sentiments of my fellow councillors. I think they've said it and summed it up quite well. I don't have much further to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, comment? Councillor Murray.
Be similar to Councillor Maloney, just endorse the comments that have been made in the chamber tonight. Very supportive. I just want to acknowledge former councillor and Jan Farrell is in the chamber, or here in the public arena tonight, and to congratulate Jan on the work that she does in this area continually. So keep up the good work, Jan. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Murray. Other councillors to comment? Back to Councillor Mason to close.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The Rainbow Ready roadmap is a set of resources designed to help regional and rural communities to progress work on LGBTIQA plus inclusion. Launched in May 22, it supports the Victorian Government's Pride in Our Future, Victoria's LGBTIQA plus strategy 22 to 32, and includes 15 indicators for local government. Mr Mayor, collaboration with the wider community is an important requirement of the Rainbow Ready roadmap. The cities have taken advice from the LGBTIQA plus Commissioner's Office that embedding the Rainbow Ready roadmap is the most important approach for local government to take in establishing a foundation of work. Mr Mayor, the city is currently working on this, and the next step is the Rainbow Ready roadmap stage 3, which is the plan. And we need to get on with planning and development for that as soon as we possibly can.
Councillor Mason, agreed. With that, I'll put to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Those against? The item is carried. Excellent. All right, item number 6 on the agenda. The the draft election period policy. This one is moved by Councillor Cadwell and seconded by Councillor Murray. Councillor Cadwell.
Well, thank you, Mr Mayor. So this is obviously a pretty important policy for us in a council election year. So this draft election period policy asks that council endorses the release of the policy for community consultation for a period of 4 weeks. And it asks that council receives a further report following that community consultation so that we can adopt the election period policy. And that's really a core part of our governance rules, which were adopted in September of 2020. And the review and amendment, as a part of the governance rules, the review and amendment do require community engagement. And the purpose of this policy is to ensure transparency and accountability throughout the council election period, which is the period from the close of nominations until the close of voting, which will happen later this year. And the policy provides a framework about what council members and staff can and cannot do. So the key items that are actually covered by this policy include the decisions that are prohibited under the Local Government Act of 2020, as well as other significant decisions that need to be avoided during the election period. It covers the council meetings during the election period and ensures that they will only discuss administrative matters, and there would be no public question time during that period. Council member motions would only be permitted in exceptional circumstances. The city will also not commence or continue any community engagement during that period, except where we're legally obliged to do so, or where our CEO determines that extraordinary circumstances exist, which would then warrant the continuation. And during that period, the city won't conduct or promote council events, except where, again, we have a legal obligation to do so. So during that period, councillors can attend events as they're required to conduct their councillor duties, but they're not permitted to use those appearances for electioneering. And finally, during that election period, the CEO can authorise the correction of any misinformation during the election period. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cadwell. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think Councillor Cadwell, I'm just glancing down on the facts. So look, there's the proposed minor changes to the policy include expanding on significant decisions to avoid during the caretaker period, updating information on election signage, revising a list of delegated committees, clarifying the Audit and Risk Committee and CEO Employment and Remuneration Committee's operations during the caretaker period, and updating public consultation language and new sections on handling misinformation and breach of policy. We did have a candidate that's standing that is no longer with us. I thought she was waiting for this, but she's not at all. She's gone. That's all from me, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Any other councillors to comment on this? Not. Back to Councillor Cadwell to close.
Well, thanks, Mr Mayor. Nothing further.
Thank you. With that, put to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? The item is carried. Item number 7, Community Grants 2024-25 Guidelines. Moved Councillor Harwood, seconded by Deputy Mayor Aiken. Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The report asks that Council approve the 24-25 grant guidelines and note the opening of the grants starting on 1st of June 24. So to all those who may still be tuned in or will read this in due course, that is the starting date that we'll be looking to open our grants. So that's the critical date for many organisations, with funding recommendations to be presented to Council for endorsement in November and December 2024. So there's that 5 to 6 month window to get your applications in. The total funding pool has increased by 431,000, reaching almost 4.48 million, which basically reflects the community expectations and the associated costs with the total of the community grants. This is where the rubber hits the road. The grants are available for community infrastructure, arts projects, clean economy projects, climate change partnerships, community events, our Creative Commissions program, environmental sustainability, First Nations cultural heritage and healthy and connected communities. So it just covers the whole gamut of our community basically, with the 3 focusing on our environment, our arts and creative community is well catered for, infrastructure for, I guess, our sporting organisations and beyond, our First Nations community in the mix, and obviously our healthy and connected communities, which is a huge component given our health and wellbeing policies that we have. So we're deeply committed to the whole community. Key changes including increasing the maximum grant available under the major community infrastructure stream from $350,000 to $400,000, basically reflecting the costs of building and materials. And again, we could argue till the cows come home it's not enough, because it just seems to escape us what we're able to do with what is a large amount of money, but the cost to do business with infrastructure building is often way beyond that. A new Creative Commissions program within the Creative Community stream will offer grants up to $20,000 for established professional artists and creatives to deliver large-scale, inspiring works. I'm going to put Director Anthony Bashford on the spot for a question without notice. Hopefully when I come back to close you might have some advice. But where will these works go that we made commissioning with these established artists, with the grants we're providing and the work they'll be doing, where that work might go? Anyway, off the top of your head, it'd be great if you could answer that.
Well, through you, Mayor, Councillor,
Sorry.
I actually think that's probably a Executive Director Bradley comment in terms of where public art might ultimately land. But what would happen is that it would be done in consultation with a whole range of groups, as you know, and we've got some fantastic public art around the city already. But I do have some role in terms of the Wool Museum Director who looks after public art. But Executive Director Bradley, any thoughts?
Well, just in relation to the works we're expecting to be created by the artists, etc. Where do we think that work may go? Or that's just something to be decided in the future? Yeah. I know it's without notice, but I just was curious as to we may have already had some ideas of areas where art and sculptures may go.
Yeah, if I may, through the Mayor, we've just commenced work on a new public art strategy, and that will address exactly what you've identified there, Councillor Harwood. So that will be coming to councillors for their input in due course.
Right, thank you. I'll do my homework a little better next time and give you a quicker heads up. Applications for the grants open, as I say, 1st of June, and there'll be a grants team available to assist clubs, groups with their applications. So that information will be available online, no doubt. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. Deputy Mayor Aiken.
Mr Mayor, look, there's probably two policy and program areas over the last 7 years that the council group has actually led. One of them is the hard waste collection system, which was driven by council resolution, and the other is actually this one, surprisingly. The council was committed to introduce some competitive grant program, and now it's probably one of our most popular policy and program areas that we have in the city of Greater Geelong. And I'm pleased to see in tonight we're actually essentially returning the 10% cuts that we made in this year's amount of funding that was available for the grant program. I'm also pleased to see that we've responded to the cost escalations that are now occurring in the capital infrastructure area. So we're increasing the maximum from $350,000 up to $400,000 to reflect the costs that are now imposed on those major grant programs that do come before us. And I'm happy to say that we're endorsing again that we will put the grants out on the 1st of June. The reality is technically we shouldn't be doing that because the budget's not adopted towards the end of June, but the reality is the level of community interest in these programs and the desire to actually try to get the grant money, we're talking over $4.4 million worth of funds into the community. It is an acceptable practice that we do advertise those grants from the 1st of June. So I encourage all the councillors if this is adopted tonight, to spread the good news that we've increased the pool of funds again back to what traditionally was available for grants, and they will be opening from the 1st of June. Most of them, not all, some of them are not going to be open, but the majority, and of course the most popular one we have, which is the Capital Infrastructure Support Fund, which funds major capital works in community-based organisations throughout the city of Greater Geelong.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillors to comment. Back to Councillor Harwood to close.
Thank you. It's really just a matter up to the communities now to get your applications in. They've been opened very shortly, and wish there was more money in the bucket, but there isn't. Thank you.
Fully agree. However, across the state, we are one of the highest contributors in terms of community grants, so we can be very proud of that. I'm always looking to increase it. With that, put to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Thank you. The item is carried. Item number 8, Gully Road Series. Intention to declare report, Special Rate and Charge Scheme, SRC 368. Moved, Councillor Maloney. Seconded, Councillor Nelson. Councillor Maloney.
Thanks, Mayor Sullivan. This is a procedural report that asks Council to give notice of its intention to declare a special rates and charges scheme to co-fund the sealing of approximately 460 metres of Gully Road and Series, starting from Barrabool Road. The estimated cost is around $260,000, with property owners and the city each contributing 50% or up to $130,000. There are 9 properties in question, and I'll leave this for my fellow councillors to comment. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Maloney. Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As Councillor Maloney rightly said, there's 9 properties involved in this. The majority were in favour of it. It is quite a significant amount, $14,500 per landowner, but the community have been wanting this for many years. There's been a number of accidents at that intersection on Barrabool Road and Gully Road. So the residents want it, so it's good that we can get this going as soon as possible. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Nelson. Any other councillors to comment? No. Councillor Maloney to close.
Nothing further to add, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maloney. Thank you, Councillor Maloney. Put that to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. First time I've seen a reverse vote. Councillor Contell. That is passed. There were no votes against. Carried. Councillor Contell has removed himself from the chamber because there's conflict with item number 9, being tender T2400025, supply and delivery of quarry materials and associated products. Moved, Councillor Wilkinson. Seconded, Councillor Mason. Councillor Wilkinson.
Mayor, this report asks Council to approve the award of contract C240025 for the supply and delivery of quarry materials and associated products to 4 tenderers. So number 1, Daisy's Garden Supplies Proprietary Limited. Number 2, Mainstream Recycling Proprietary Limited. Number 3, North Altona Rock Blasting Corporation Proprietary Limited. 4, Barrow Group Proprietary Limited. So the renewal of this ongoing contract is essential for the supply of quarry materials and associated products. And these contractors were chosen following an open tender process administered by the Procurement Services Unit on behalf of City Works. The selection criteria focused on sustainable value, technical capability, project resourcing, methodology, quality of product, customer service and price.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mayor Sullivan. The tender evaluation panel determined that these 4 companies provided the best value for money and met the necessary requirements to supply the city with quarry materials and associated products. Mr Mayor, this all lies within the statutory processes of the Local Government Act 2020 and falls within the allocated budget. As usual, tenderers were asked to provide human resource management philosophy and policies, and the tender evaluation process involved the assessment work health and safety policies, procedures and risk assessment documents, and involved assessment of environmentally sustainable initiatives. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Any other councillors to comment? If not, Councillor Wilkinson to close.
Nothing further to add, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. I'll put to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Those against? The item is carried. We'll just hold on for Councillor Contel to return to the chamber. All right, that brings us to the end of section 2 reports. We're now moving into section 3 with notices of motion, and we've received a notice of rescission for tonight's council meeting, the cat curfew review. May I please have a mover for the notice of rescission? And Councillor Cadwell, is there a seconder? Deputy Mayor Aiken. Councillor Cadwell, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So regarding this item, I've previously outlined all of my concerns about the introduction of this 24/7 cat curfew, which is why tonight I'm presenting this motion. And essentially, if the motion is successful, it would see us rescind or remove or wind back, I suppose, the previous decision by council at the April 2024 meeting. I do note on the screen that in fact there's an error, and the first bullet point, the first item there, number 1, should actually say that we are rescinding the resolution made on the 23rd of April 2024. Sorry, the version I had actually said 2023, so don't worry about that. So the main reasons that I'm putting this forward are essentially that I think the financial burden that this policy will impose upon residents, particularly those on low fixed incomes, and the concerns I have that actually might require people to give up their cats, which in many cases could be their only much loved companion, and the lack of detail with regard to how this would actually work for registered cat owners who are living in rental accommodation, for example, given that there will be a substantial investment on the part of the tenant to comply with that policy, and still allow for their cats to have time outside for recreation. So essentially, if this is successful, it would mean that council would revert to the current overnight curfew, which by all accounts is working well. I've certainly been contacted, and I'm sure a lot of other councillors have as well in the recent months, by residents concerned about the impact of this change on them. So local registered cat owners, and of course on their furry friends and companions. People are also quite confused and angry that council didn't advise them about the change to this policy in their annual registration renewal notice in either 2022, 23 or 2024, given that this change was actually first endorsed by council back in November of 2021. And just in the past few days, I've received a flurry of emails and phone calls from concerned residents asking that their councillors support this motion tonight. One email in particular from Yvette stood out, and I'll just read it out briefly. So Yvette writes, "Dear councillors, I'm writing in relation to the proposed cat curfew and would ask that you support Councillor Cadwell's motion of rescission scheduled to be voted on at tonight's meeting, 28th of May 2024. I cannot believe as a person paying the cat registration and council rates that I wasn't consulted or informed of the decision to bring in such a curfew. Since it was announced, I've received a quote to enclose a portion of my yard for my 11-year-old cat that is currently curfewed in line with the existing dusk to dawn law, but during the day is able to wander and follow the sun around my property. The quote I received was $3,500 for the enclosure, and I have been so stressed since receiving it, knowing that I only have until November to have this erected, and I have no idea where I'll put my hands on the funds to pay for it. a vet. I think that makes it pretty clear that we are placing a burden, I think, on our community, and that's not something that I can support in this current cost of living crisis that we're all facing. So I have nothing further to say, but with that I commend this rescission motion to my fellow councillors and I would ask them to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cadwell. Deputy Mayor Aiken.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I actually want to turn councillors' minds back to the last time we discussed this issue, and Councillor Murray actually talked about a cat that you walked past when you went to the football. Councillor Murray, I have to confess, I actually met that cat the other week when I was walking to the football, and I don't know if it was one of those fate things, but I actually walked past the house where the cat actually stands in the driveway, and it lets everybody pat it as you're walking past to go watch the football down at Cadinian Park. And after I patted the cat myself and I continued to walk down to Cadinian Park, I actually thought, what a sad thing that that's actually going to be banned by the City of Greater Geelong if we do have the cat curfew. So I don't know if it was fate. I'm not sure why it actually did happen, but I certainly can testify that it was a beautiful experience for me and something that I would actually like others in the Geelong community to experience as well too. And I think that cat would be quite devastated if it no longer has that opportunity to be able to do what it does to bring joy to cat supporters, and in this case I think it was Gold Coast supporters as well too as they walk down towards the football ground.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Aiken. Councillors to comment? Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Councillor Cadwell and Deputy Mayor Aiken. You've both described cats that have enjoyed moving around on the person's property. So it would not in any way either of those cats contravene the actual cat curfew that was suggested. I'd like to also acknowledge all community members who've reached out expressing their views on both sides. Cats can also live very happily indoors, which is a very cheap and simple solution, and certainly a quick Google search will show that there's a vast range of options in terms of containing a cat to your property, everything from closing the door and enriching an internal environment to constructing a far less perhaps onerous, costly structure. There is a very long transition period and a lot of education work to be done in part of this program. I'm understood from officers that council work very closely with people to explore all options, and it's really around education. Cat welfare is at the top of the importance, I suppose, and one of the reasons why a cat curfew has been suggested, that cats actually live longer, have fewer vet bills, protected from other cats, dog attacks, cat fights, interactions with diseases. It's good for human health in terms of the cost to the health system and really specific health issues that humans can experience as a result of cats and cat feces. Local wildlife, so 4 out of the 5 cats allowed outside, and we're talking about pet cats, will hunt and kill an average of 2 to 3 animals per week. This adds up to 6,000 to 11,000 animals killed in a suburb per square metre. 323 million native animals nationally. So a national study was done in 2023 by the Biodiversity Council in Australia, 11 Victorian and interstate universities. The national survey showed that most people actually supported a cat curfew. More than a third of the local councils require, across the nation, require containment overnight or up to 24 hours a day. And we know that containment overnight is great for protecting nocturnal creatures, but not those in, that actually get around during the day. So it's also actually really good for wildlife, but also good for the economy in terms of an overall benefit.
Mr Mayor, just Point of order, just a correction. Councillor Wilkinson said that the cat that I was referring to wouldn't be affected by the curfew because it was within the boundaries. In fact, Councillor Wilkinson, it stands outside the boundaries on the footpath. I would not want to be accused of going into someone's private property.
I'm sorry, I thought you said the driveway.
The cat actually does stand outside.
You did say driveway, it was ambiguous.
Driveway.
It was
the
ambiguous.
cat actually does stand in the driveway and the footpath. That's public area. Yeah, just wish to correct that.
It is noted.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Apologies for me mucking around with microphones here. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I'm pleased that Councillor Aitken can have a warm and furry feeling patting Snow on the footpath. I think Snow is the name of the cat. Nevertheless, Snow might have been defecating in the next door neighbour's garden, and that's an example. I've received many emails, and one expressed to me, a lady expressed to me how fairly lonely lady, her only love in life is to tend her tiny little piece of garden in her backyard. And every time she goes there, some cat has scratched her new plants out and left another deposit of cat poo there, which is highly infectious, by the way. So, Mr Mayor, it's not okay for any pet to be uncontrolled and free range. It's not okay for a pet to be also kept in an inappropriate space. It could be said to be cruel to that cat. It's not okay for a small minority of pets to be given a free opportunity to be a nuisance in the greater community and to other vulnerable people, their private spaces and their gardens. It's not okay for our community to assume well-being of lonely and vulnerable people is achieved by the companionship of a wandering cat that doesn't want to be with that lonely person anyway. Mr Mayor, there are simple and cheap control measures, not only the $3,000 solution that was mentioned before. There are harnesses and running leads, and there are other ways of containing cats in a cheaper way. Mr Mayor, responsible pet ownership requires having an appropriate living environment. This does not mean nuisance to neighbours, gardens and pets. Mr Mayor, a clear majority of ratepayers support the 24-hour cat curfew. In fact, was about of the order of 96% people don't own cats. And the original motion that was put is backed by sound officer research and sound science from the CSIRO and other agencies. And also the Invasive Council. Mr Mayor, the arguments put by the Pet Welfare Foundation I find are partisan and are flawed and don't get to the crux of the matter. Indeed, a City Council that used this flawed and partisan report in the Australian Pet Welfare Foundation was one small island, one small LGA within a larger metropolis, and that's not a holistic approach. Of course, stray animals removed from one area will soon be replaced for another area. This is not the case for Geelong. Geelong is a large metropolis surrounded by rural areas which are already being controlled by state laws. So, Mr Mayor, as I said before, it's not okay for any pet to be uncontrolled and free range. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Before I go to the next speaker, I will have to put a vote to go past 10 p.m. as we are promoting that at 9:58 right now. All councillors in favour of maintaining the council meeting open past 10 p.m. in favour, vote now. Thank you. All those against? That was a very quick hands.
Get on with it.
Quick hands. All right, any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I've been giving this a bit more thought over the last couple of days, I suppose, since this has sort of been brought to our attention, and I consider myself reasonably comfortable with the current process, and I say that with the, I guess, having some discussions with our officers and the animal management and I guess some of the issues that go with that. Just trying to get educated on what it might mean overall if we were to change to a different system. And I think also, I'm not aware of the data or the information as such that has reached a point where it's become I guess, a major issue of incidents with cats in and around our communities. So at this point in time, I'll be supporting the rescission motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. Other councillors? I'll say a few words before I throw over closing. Like many people, I have a cat. Like many people, it lives inside. And keeping it inside is about as expensive as a tray of kitty litter and keeping my door closed. And for me, this all comes back to one question. I love the environment. We all know the damage that cats can do, feral cats, domestic cats, when they're outside and at large. But there's one person who's a cat owner, just like myself, that can answer me the question as to why they have the right to put their pet on somebody else's property and justify it with me properly. I'd change my vote. But I can't think of any reason you wouldn't put your dog over your neighbour's fence, look after it for the day, you wouldn't chuck any other pet, any other piece of your property in somebody else's property and say, this is mine, but you have to look after it. It has the right to be on your property. And if somebody can explain to me why other people have to look after their property by being this cat that's at large, going to people's gardens, across the house, who knows where, I'll change my vote. But I can't think of a single reason why people don't have the right to property and have the right to have other people's property, being the cats, trespass across their yards, gardens, front, back, anywhere. With that, retain my original vote. I'll throw back to Councillor Cabell to close.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I have nothing further.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour of the notice of rescission? Those against? Motion passes. We're moving to section 4 for the evening.
Mr. Mayor, would I be able to call for a division, please, on that vote?
Absolutely. Absolutely. All those in favour of the notice of rescission? That's Councillor Aiken, Councillor Hathaway, Councillor Contell, Councillor Cadwell, Councillor Murray, Councillor Harwood. All those against it? That was Councillor Maloney, Councillor Sullivan, Councillor Mason, Councillor Wilkinson, Councillor Nelson. All right. Section 4, record of informal meetings of councillors. Can I please have a mover and a seconder? Moved Councillor Wilkinson, seconded Councillor Harwood. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? That is carried. Planning delegations. Can I please have a mover and a seconder for this? Moved Councillor Wilkinson, seconded Councillor Mason. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? That is carried. May I please have a mover and a seconder to move item 6.1, being the Audit and Risk Committee summary report, into confidential. Moved Councillor Harwood, seconded Councillor Wilkinson. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? The item is carried. All right. Now, may I please have a move and a seconder to close the meeting to the public so we can consider that item. Moved Councillor Nelson, seconded Councillor Wilkinson. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Thank you. I would like to thank both our virtual and in-person gallery members for their participation tonight. Good night, everybody.